You. All right, we're live now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Everson. Good afternoon, commissioners. Good afternoon, staff. We will call this Caddo Parish Commission virtual work session agenda to order. It's November the 16th at 3:34. Mr. Everson, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Present.
Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young. Commissioner Burrell.
Here.
Commissioner Cawthorn. Commissioner Gage Watts. Commissioner, I didn't hear you, Commissioner, but I see you. Commissioner Taliaferro.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Atkins.
Here.
Commissioner Chavez.
Here.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Here.
Commissioner Epperson.
Here.
Okay, great. I'm counting 9 of 12 present.
Thank you, Mr. Everson. As a reminder, please put your phone on silent as well as turn on your Wi-Fi for a better connection. We will have our invocation led by Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Lazarus.
I'm here too. It's fun.
Hey, VP.
Yes.
Thank you. I got you.
Thank you. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before your throne of grace and mercy, oh God. We're humble, God, yet heavy hearts, Lord. God, in the name of Jesus, Lord, we ask you, Father God, for your peace, Father God, to dwell in this land. God, we know, Father God, that there are many who are struggling. There are many who are hurting right now, oh God. But Lord, I believe, God, that you are well able, Father God, to do anything but fail. Lord, in the name of Jesus, we ask you, Father God, to give us guidance, wisdom, and understanding in this season, oh Lord. Let us make decisions that are pleasing and acceptable in your sight. Lord, it is in the mighty name of Jesus that we seal this prayer and believe it is so. And every believer says, amen.
Amen. Please stand, face the flag. Veterans may give a hand to brow salute. All others, place your hand over your heart and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Watts and Commissioner Lazarus. Mr. Everson, do we have any agenda additions?
Not aware of any agenda additions today, but let me also, we do have the teleconference requirements on our agenda today. This is a new item on our work session agenda. Now, your regular session agenda is set by your bylaws, so it's going to, this portion will be under agenda additions in your regular session meeting. But today, because this is the first time, we wanted to kind of call these to your attention, especially under this section. Again, like you've been having, you have a certificate of teleconference that is just a certified, the chairman certifying the agenda. That's attached and requires no action. But the other thing that you need to do, that you'll be required to do in order to hear the full agenda is we need a motion to approve consideration of items under Louisiana Revised Statute 42:17.1, and that needs to pass by a 2/3 vote.
So, okay, Chair will second that. So we have a motion by Commissioner Epperson, seconded by the Chair for 4-1, motion to approve consideration of items under the Louisiana RS 42-17.1. Mr. Everson, you want to do a roll call vote?
Sure. Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young. Commissioner Burrell.
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn. Commissioner Gage Watts.
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro.
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus. Commissioner Lazarus, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That motion carries with 9 in support and 3 absent. And that brings us to agenda additions. Again, I'm not aware of any unless there are any out there.
I haven't received any.
Okay. Then that'll bring us to citizens' comments. And I have received 1 comment electronically. And we can give out the phone number for anybody who might want to call in via phone right now if you
Yes, please.
ready. Okay, that phone number is 318-226-6596. Again, that's 318-226-6596. And I'll begin reading the public comment that we received electronically, and it's from Mr. Baylor Bear Smith. And it says, Commissioners, I'm writing to state my opposition to the proposal to provide $500 payments to families in Caddo Parish. It is not possible who should receive funds. This is in addition to many families receiving $800 per week in unemployment, $1,500 stimulus plus $250 per child, PEBT benefits for families with school-age children, a national eviction moratorium, and an electricity cutoff moratorium. If Shreveport City officials note its sales tax revenue has increased this year, which shows a stronger than predicted economy. Focus on flattening the curve and wearing masks so that families can go back to normal life. Sincerely, Mr. Baylor Smith. And I do not see any phone calls on the line at the moment. So,
Mr. Everson, we'll move along, and if somebody calls in, we'll ask them to call back under citizen comments, late arrivals.
that sounds great. So that brings us to visitors. We do have quite a few visitors today. Again, both just because of the time of year that are scheduled and because this is our first meeting where we can officially have visitors again under the new teleconference requirements. The first one on the schedule today is the master plan update. And Alan Clark is on the line.
Yes, I'm here.
There he is.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chair, members of the commission.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for this opportunity to once again allow us to give some master plan updates. We have not given many updates in quite some time, and we have been working diligently on the master plan, the events surrounding the master plan for the last 2 years. When we started this process, we were making certain that the master plan would not become a book that would be placed on a shelf and collect enough dust to grow plants, but it would become a very existing and a very exciting document, a very working document, a very moving document that we wouldn't be involved in as much as we possibly can. The master plan, we roughly believe, had at least 354 action items and recommendations. Master plan covered the entire city of Shreveport, and it also covered those areas beyond the city limits that are in the unincorporated areas of Caddo Parish. We took a list of the master plan recommendation and action items and started doing a review of what had been done. This was a 20-year master plan. We're on the 10th year at 2020. So we needed to know how much progress had been made on the master plan and what needed to be done. We found that there has not been significant involvement or items that have been addressed. The main item that was addressed in the master plan was the development and the implementation of the Unified Development Code. These were initially set out to be a Unified Development Code, which would unify the parish and the city and we would function under one code. That did not pan out to be the case. So we ended up with two different codes, a Unified Development Code for the City of Shreveport and a Unified Development Code for the Parish of Caddo. We have been doing many modifications and amendments to the Unified Development Code, but during the process, we kept trying to figure out, we were making amendments to the City Unified Development Code, but for some reason, the amendments for the Parish Unified Development Code never could quite get out of the Long Range Planning Committee. So we studied the process, we studied the ordinance, we studied everything that was happening with the ordinance, and we finally realized that this ordinance was not totally effective for those areas outside the city limits of Shreveport, that they were more reflective of the urban area in the city of Shreveport, and therefore we were not giving the approaches and not giving the information and ordinances that really needed to be governing those areas beyond the city limits of Shreveport. Based on that fact, we did more evaluation. We went out into the parish and took looks at what was actually happening out in the parish. We went out and even did some enforcement for a limited time to find that the requirements of the Unified Development Code did not reflect the things that were happening out of the parish. The parish was like 95% residentially zoned property, and the rest was in commercial property and industrial property. So based on those things, we have gone back to the drawing board, understanding all of the implications of the House bills that passed in the Louisiana legislature, but we still feel that there's a need to go back into the Unified Development Code and make this Unified Development Code more reflective of the areas that are outside the city limits of Shreveport. We're working on that. We're preparing documents that we will send out to those persons, first of all, the Parish Commission, and those persons who were very unhappy with the existing Unified Development Code, and start that process to be completed early in the year 2021. Some other things that have been associated with the master plan update has been, thanks to you, we have been working very diligently on a web page that will facilitate the ability of developers, citizens, and anyone that's interested in trying to do business with the city of Shreveport, the Parish of Caddo, and the Metropolitan Planning Commission. We have developed through a consulting firm. The consulting firm is Granicus out of Denver, Colorado. It is one of the top consulting firms and website development firms in the United States with governmental agencies. We have decided and selected them to develop this one-stop shop website for the city of Shreveport, the Parish of Caddo, and the MPC. What this will do, we have multiple websites with the city, the parish, and the MPC as a separate website. This will make it a one-stop shop. Everybody that needs information on reference development or all other type of information in relationship to these entities will be able to just sign on when they submit a search for development in the city of Shreveport or a search for development in the parish of Caddo. This one website will come up and it will direct them to the information that we have available for them. At a later date, we are going through the city of Shreveport contract review process. Once this contract is approved and the funds are appropriated and we can sign the contract, then we will come back with a involved presentation before you showing exactly all of the benefits of this new web page. We are also involved, and you may be interested in this because we found that it's a very beneficial product. We're involved in creating a neighborhood participation plan for the city of Shreveport and the parish of Caddo. Real briefly, what this does is when a development is coming into the city or development is coming into the parish, there is a requirement that a developer will have a meeting with the neighborhoods that are most impacted by that development. And with that meeting, they will get an opportunity to meet as long as they need to iron out all of the differences that can be ironed out. And they will present a report to the MPC board at the hearing to address the application that they've submitted. This will cover rezoning, this will cover annexations, this will cover special use permits, this will cover a number of different entities that neighborhoods will have an opportunity to express their views and get the answers that they want. We have a couple of applications right now that we're experimenting with in the city of Shreveport and the parish of Caddo. We're setting up meetings. We've deferred actions on particular applications to give an opportunity for these neighborhoods to be provided with the information that they need from the applicants to just know exactly what's being proposed, know exactly what's happening, and an opportunity for a report to come to these bodies in order to make sure that all of the information that's available has been expressed and vetted properly. Lastly, in the master plan process, we're dealing with annexations. Annexations have become a very interesting process. What we found is annexations basically consist of someone coming to the city of Shreveport, property management, submitting a petition, and that information is forwarded on to the MPC, and the MPC does the fiscal analysis and makes recommendation how this annexation meets the requirements of the master plan for Shreveport Caddo. We are looking at a series of different approaches to annexation. One of those approaches is the possibility of annexation fees. Looking at impact fees to address the impact of the annexation on the particular property that's being annexed. And we're looking at how do we get the parish of Caddo more involved in the annexation process. That's the one step that was omitted when this initially happened. Many times we will send the information out to the appropriate commissioner, but most times those commissioners don't feel or don't express any ideas that they have about this annexation. So that will become a part of the future process of the annexation process. And we're expecting to try to implement that first of 2021. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Very thorough report on the UDC, the webpage, the neighborhood plan, and the annexation. Commissioners, if you'd like to get on the board, go ahead and click the raise your hand button and I'll call on you. And one thing I would add, Mr. Clark, I know I see you, Talaferro, Commissioner Talaferro, hang tight one sec. A lot of the people's concern was the UDC in itself, just the name of it, the Unified Development Code. They wanted to see a parish code, and I know you guys are going to work on something like that. But I just wanted to make sure that the public knew, if they're watching, that is the idea. Because I know they fought really hard to work on getting the Unified Development Code disbanded outside of the incorporated areas of the city of Shreveport. Commissioner, go ahead, Mr. Clark.
If I may, and we recognize that, and that's why I gave some of the comments that I did, that it wasn't so much that the Unified Development Code as name was bad, it was that the document that was approved was not a good document that represented the lifestyle, if you will, of citizens that live outside the city limits of Shreveport. So we have taken the information that was submitted to us from the most vocal group in opposition to the code of ordinance, the parish ordinance, if you will, and other persons. And we have a listing of, we had 3 mass meetings that we have maintained the information from those meetings. We're consolidating all of that information into one to make a presentation at some point for just to start the process of what the ordinance should look like in the parish.
And I know it, you know this, and I know this, and the people watching that are the staff. But Mr. Clark, you inherited this, and just to put it out there, I think you've done a great job on trying to bring a happy resolution to all parties at hand. So thank you for the work you've been doing on this.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Taliaferro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with you in that I believe Mr. Clark and his staff have done their due diligence. I think they've been on top of this from the time that it was brought to the table. And I think we all agree that those who have the rural lifestyle wish to have a parish development code rather than a unified development code. We understand the unified is paramount, but obviously there were things that applied to the city that didn't apply to the parish. So Mr. Clark didn't at one time, and maybe would redo this, is that you did send up updates and changes during our community meetings of things that were things that were immediately taken care of, that you immediately saw were just, for lack of a better word, preposterous regarding the comparison between the city and the parish. And how many do you, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but that was quite a tasking for you. And how many do you believe that you actually saw immediately and were willing to either, well, for the most part, you were willing to take them off the books or count them null and void as they pertain to the parish? Do you recall how many that was?
Not often. I remember there were some ridiculous requirements that the code had in reference to the parking of vehicles, chicken coops,
Right.
Things of that nature that we had no realistic need to be addressing in the parish. We think there were about 20 to 30 of those issues, but if you would not hold me to that, I'm not looking at anything that definitively states that, but
No,
there
sir.
were a lot of issues that, like you
Yes.
said.
No, sir, and I appreciate that. My only reason for asking you is to actually let our viewers know and fellow commissioners know that based on the community meetings that were held, and you and your staff brought these concerns back to them to show that their concerns, number one, were heard, number two, were immediately addressed, and that more were going to be addressed in the future. If we could, can we revisit those only to put them out on either the Caddo Parish website under Parish Development Code, whatever title you want to use, accomplishments, just to show that there is a work in progress. I don't necessarily want our constituents to be waiting for a specific website when we already have our Caddo Parish website, that maybe we can actually create a link and or a separate page or something to where we can actually keep our public updated until such time as another website becomes available and through the MPC. Would that be possible?
We can figure a way out to make sure that happens. We have a rough document right now where we started addressing all of the concerns that were brought to us. We wanted to put it into a more formal process, more formal form, but we can make that available.
Yes, sir. I just want our constituents to know that it is definitely a work in progress, and that their concerns have not been put on the back burner, that we are working feverishly to make sure that this parish development code comes to fruition. So I think keeping them informed is paramount going through this entire process. So anything that you and Dr. Wilson can do and our staff, to make sure that we get the word out would be greatly appreciated. And again, echoing the thoughts of Commissioner Chavez, well done. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for being the tip of the spear and taking this challenge on and being receptive to our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Talaferro. Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes, I just want to be sure that I know what I just heard, but legal, did we ratify those changes that were given to us?
Not yet. Henry, you want to address that question, Henry? You're mute. You're mute.
There was one set of changes that came up that did come forward, but there are multiple sets of changes that have not come and been adopted.
Okay.
So from that standpoint, there is a lot to be done.
Okay, thank you.
I see no other commissioners on the board.
Yeah. Commissioner Chavez.
Yes, sir, Dr. Wilson.
In short order, I will be bringing you a recommendation on how we can comply with the spirit and order of the law as a beginning on January 1st of 2022 regarding enforcement.
Okay.
So I'll be giving you my administration recommendation on how we can go about achieving the objective of the outcome that was to create a parish enforcement mechanism for that for the UDC.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
If no other questions for Mr. Clark, that concludes your report. I appreciate you for coming down.
Thank you so much, and thank you for giving us this opportunity and placing us on the agenda again.
Absolutely, and I know you always stay and watch, so I'm guessing you'll stay with us. Mr. Everson, we'll move to the next agenda item.
Absolutely. Our next presentation or our next visitor comes from NLCOG, and it's their Executive Director, Kent Rogers. I believe Kent is on the call.
Yes, he is.
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Kent, would you like me to share that presentation that you sent?
If you haven't sent it out to everyone, yes. If not, that's okay.
I did send it to everybody, but I can also open it up now if you would like.
No, that's okay. That's
okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Burrell.
Before Mr. Rogers start, I would like to make some comments as a preference to this particular project, because I was the one who asked for him to come and give us an update.
Absolutely, Commissioner. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I just wanted to say that I want to first express my appreciation for Mr. Kent Rogers, who is the NLCOG, or should I say Northwest Louisiana Council of Governments Director for our area, for coming and giving us an update. But I want to also express my disappointment in terms of the progress that we've made on this project thus far. And I'm hoping that he will kind of outline what the problems are, because when we first started this project, or should I say identified it, I was in the legislature and I was able to amend into the I-49 project from Arkansas to Shreveport. This portion, which is the inner city portion of I-49, I was able to amend it into the bill in order to create this section of roadway, which would complete our I-49 interstate. I did that in 2007. And here we are 13 years later, still have not received a record of decision. To compare it to I-69, and if I'm in error, then I would be the most humble to apologize. But I-69 was started years later, and it has a record of decision from what I can read in the documents that we have today. So to say the least, I'm very disappointed in the progress that we've made on this. This project at that time was estimated to have a annual economic impact of $860 million, which we sorely needed in this city. The initial cost of the project when we started was $360 million, somewhere around that. Now it's estimated over $500 million, just to show you how time lapse and how it can affect the project. The other thing is it has been on the book so long that I'm according to the information that I received, the original website, which was created in 2010, is obsolete and now has to be updated with new technology. That's just how long it has taken for this project to be done. So needless to say, I'm not very happy about that. We are also subject to lose $100 million. I don't know whether we have or not. That was actually secured by the Northwest Louisiana legislative delegation. And I'm very much concerned that either we've lost it, because other projects compete for this money, and it's not just going to stay there if we don't move ahead. Lastly, I was on a Zoom call with a committee group talking about Section 106 phase of this project, which is just going to complete. We're going to continue to push it out. So, to say the least, I'm glad to have Director Rogers to be here to hopefully enlighten the commission, because you all did support this project fully in your resolution to the state. And I just wanted to make sure that you all know where things were. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Mr. Rogers, you there?
Yes, sir, I sure am.
Perfect. I know there's Commissioner Burrell brought some good questions on board. I know you have the presentation to give. I don't know if you want to give your presentation or direct those questions first, but it's up to you.
Well, in light of his questions, and since y'all should have a copy of what I sent over, we'll start with addressing a few of his comments and concerns and go from there. I, like you, Commissioner Burrell, am very frustrated with the process, very frustrated with the time frame that it's taking to get this done. I will make a comment in terms of some of the I-69 stuff. That did take upwards of the 10, 12 years to get it fully completed also. It seems to be that the larger interstate type projects, getting an environmental document cleared for them, it's getting to be a ridiculous time frame. I have addressed a lot of the issues and things that could speed those up are unfortunately out of our hands and out of the state's hands, and in terms of the Fed's hands. I will comment that there have been some changes to some of the NEPA laws and NEPA regulations. However, unfortunately, they don't fall on this project because this project has been in the works for some time, and hopefully future ones will be somewhat streamlined. To give you some of the, I don't want to call it an excuse, but to let you know why some of the things have drug on. Several years back, we worked on what's called the cultural survey and the cultural work for the corridor, primarily for Build Alternative 1, which is the alternative that starts at the 29 interchange, goes through the Allendale Ledbetter area and up to and ties into the new I-220 interchange. That work was completed and submitted to DOTD and Federal Highways for comments and it took over a year to get comments back. We sent many emails and correspondences to them directly through the consulting team, through the Deputy Secretary Calavota at DOTD to see what was dragging on and why it was taking so long, with various different, I guess, excuses from them. As soon as we got comments back, those comments were addressed. In addition to that, there's constantly been more and more work asked for within this project. They've asked for greater and greater detail in terms of engineering towards the project. That's not just with this project, that seems to be with all projects now, that I guess you could say the phases of implementation of a project, such as the engineering phase that would come next, has creeped farther and farther into the environmental. And that's happening across the board with multiple projects. But from there, I would like to go on and let you know that we have had some changes. There have been changes at DOTD. A new project manager has been assigned to the project and has been extremely responsive and pushing to move things forward. Providence Engineering, who is the lead consultant on the project, they have a new CAO, a new business manager. They also have appointed a new project manager, someone who should have been the project manager from the get-go, and several new team members.
They should have been fired.
Some of them probably have. The cultural firm that was doing the cultural work has been removed from the project, and a new firm, Coastal Engineering, has been put in place to pick up that cultural work and move forward. They had some work to do on ground, and they were on ground the past couple of, I'd say during the past month, getting their work completed. They even stayed through storms and hurricanes and whatnot to get the work done. I think the people in place now at the various different firms and agencies, possibly with the exception of Federal Highways, are there to get it done and get it moving as fast and as quickly as possible. With that, you are correct in terms of the Section 106 consultation meeting. The data that was requested during that meeting that you participated in from the cultural group, they literally were on the ground that day and had been on the ground shortly after that and completed all the work that they were required to collect. They are now doing the analysis of that work and should have it into Providence and then DOTD and Federal Highways and the SHPO's office for review shortly. We did have we had initially had what was called a citizens advisory group set up. They met several times over the years previous to, I guess you could say, this slowdown. Part of the problem with a lot of the cultural stuff is that that's not public information. It's not public data. We're not allowed to share a lot of that stuff with the public. We're not, it gets kind of complicated because yes, it's a public document. I mean, it's a public project, but a lot of this data that's being collected for some of these portions are not available to the public or not made available as public access. Therefore, that committee was not apprised of any of that work that was going on. We did let our board, the MPO board, know multiple times of what was going on and how long it was taking. We have also in the interim done some revision to some of that geometry work to comply with the request for additional information on the line and grade. Primarily for build alternative 1. Once that has been approved of, There's some minor changes for what's called Build Alternative 2 that would be made, but we're not going to do that until they agree with the concepts and ideas for Build Alternative 1. We are in the process of updating and moving the website, like you mentioned, and most of that is the firm, the group that was handling the actual website. They have changed their platform on us a couple of times, and it's not necessarily that the technology is old. It's more that it's just been outdated, and the way that they do their work is somewhat outdated. So we're going to move it to a more modern platform, make it a little more easy to use, easier to get access to data and information. You have any questions specific to 49 I can answer before I move into the next couple of things?
Hey, Ken, could you address the $100 million that Commissioner Burrell talked about?
Yes, there was $100 million appropriate. Well, it was gone through the, I'm trying to remember, it's basically the BP oil spill fund.
Yes.
A rework of those funds as they come in from the oil spill money and how they would be allocated. That legislation actually takes effect at the beginning of this next regular session. There's actually a 1-year delay in terms of the reallocation of those funds and how they are to be spent. The first year of that, those funds stay in the same categories and same programs as they were originally allocated. It's the second year that those new allocations would come into effect. And one of those being the $100 million for the I-49 project. We hope that we can use those to match federal funds. We've been working closely with the senator, with our senators and Congressman Johnson in hopes of getting that. One of the things that DOTD has advised us in federal highways is that once that there's a portion of the EIS which is called the alternatives decision memo or the alternative. Once they agree to that portion of the document, then DOTD and the federal delegation can move forward with doing some of the exact right-of-way mapping, finding parcels that would be considered hardship parcels, working to acquire those, working to put together some bid packages in order to do much like they did on the gate access road, where it was a design build type projects where you have the same firm doing the design work as doing that would do the construction work. That would help speed up the process of the development and completion of the project.
So we're not at risk of losing the money.
Excuse me?
So we're not at risk of losing the $100 million. I
don't think so at this time, but you know the way legislators work, there's always a chance of somebody rewriting something somewhere down the line.
Okay,
that's the problem.
Yep.
If I can also inject. Go ahead on Woody. I'm sorry. You have to.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay. Going back to this section 106 study that we are doing, Ken, given that we're just now commencing this, I know this is a part of the process, but it's like we're just now starting this process when we've had 13 years to deal with this cultural study. I know that it falls somewhere in NEPA or whatever the acronyms are, but why are we just not starting this?
The 106 takes place after you do the initial cultural review and part of the 4F process. It's just, there are steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that you have to follow and go through that order. It just happens to be that that's where it falls in the order. One thing that one of the other things that I will mention that caused, I guess you could say, I don't necessarily want to say a delay in the process, but something that has added quite a bit of time to the process and several years to the process was the request and the addition of what's called Build Alternative 5, which is the otherwise known as the Loop It option. We were required to go back and bring that option up to full study detail that all the other options were at. And that took a couple of years to do that. As you noted earlier, we had spent several years on the project, and then suddenly having a whole other alternative that you had to bring to that same level of detail into play took a couple of years. And then finally, it got to that point.
Well, I know that there were local opposition that was being fed against this project again. I started dealing with this project in 1988, and personally, and here we are today, and a lot of the opposition was gone, and then we wanted, certain people who are in city administration wanted to create another. Some more opposition to it. So after Hurricane Katrina, then they started building houses down there, knowing that we were in the process of moving this project forward, and then started building houses in the pathway, which they knew that would be one of the things that the federal highway department would strongly consider. So yes, I recognize that there have been, local opposition that has created some lapse in time on this project, but 13 years is really ridiculous, and that's partly due to the people who we've had in charge. So that's my burning issue. Nothing personal, just my burning issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, Mr. Rogers, you asked the question. It's obviously been appointed the exact pathway that I-49 is going to flow, correct?
Correct. What the MPO has approved, and we actually passed a resolution. I believe the commission passed a very similar resolution. The city has passed several resolutions, was that Build Alternative 1 be identified as the locally preferred alternative. Ultimately, Federal Highways has that final decision of what the preferred alternative is. And Federal Highways actually calls it the environmentally preferred alternative. We're hoping that they will come to some agreement and concurrence with that alternatives decision memo or alternatives analysis, saying, yes, we agree with this one. Yes, you still have to do some of these other studies and other work to go along with it, but that would be a huge, huge leap forward in this project.
What's it going to take? And I understand Commissioner Burrell's frustration on this, because I think I got 6 years ago is when I started paying attention to it. What's it going to take to ask the federal government to figure out which environmental alternative that they prefer to give?
We keep supplying them information and data, and we in terms of myself and our consulting team and most of DOTD feel that we have provided them more than enough information and more than enough justification to move forward with this. They just at every step along the way ask for more and more detail on various different aspects of it.
Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Keep going.
It's getting Federal Highways more or less to concur with that and stop asking for more detailed information on it.
Do you think a resolution from the commission, sponsored by myself and Commissioner Burrell, go into our congressmen and our senators asking for some resolution would be beneficial
We actually, Deputy Secretary Calavoda has actually scheduled a meeting with Federal Highways later this week. I believe it's Thursday early morning, between the whole consulting team and all the different agencies. Just to remind them, here's what we've done, here's what we've put together. We all agreed to, recently there was a letter that came out basically through Congressman Johnson's office, but it included several other business entities and whatnot, which DOTD and the state replied to, we replied to. I know that Providence had replied to, but I don't believe, and I have never seen a written response from Federal Highways. But all the other agencies, concurred that here's the schedule, here's the timeline, here's what needs to get done, here's the time frame to get these things done, and let's move forward with them. And we've been within days, that timeline. There's been a few days here and there that haven't been kept with, but again, none of us realized that we would be living in the circumstances that we're living in now, nor would we have ever dreamed that we'd have storm after storm after storm hitting Louisiana like we have this year. But we are literally within 2 or 3 days of that, what was agreed upon within that schedule. And the bottom line of that schedule is still the same.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
I wanted to take the opportunity to commend Congressman Johnson. He did get involved in this thing after we screamed over and over about it. He got involved in it, and there seemed to be some accountability coming forth now. It is my hope that with the change of administrations now at the federal level, that we would move toward a record of decision. There is still no time frame, as I understand it, unless Director Rogers can give us a time frame for a record of decision, because nothing is going to happen until after that takes place. And hopefully we will have much of this behind us, so that if they can get an infrastructure plan that is being talked about, has been talked about for the last 15 years, at the upper levels, that we would be in line to get some of this work done, because we sorely need it in order to boost our economy here.
I agree, Commissioner Burrell. Let's do this in the essence of time. I know we have some other visitors waiting on the Zoom. Mr. Rogers, can you give us an update via an email after your meeting this Thursday, and kind of let us know what we need to do from there?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm happy to.
I appreciate that. Thank you for coming down, and thank you for advising us on the progress thus far.
Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
My hand was up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see anybody. Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, Ken, I just real briefly, I missed a lot of this conversation. I'm just curious to ask to what does the change in administration possibly mean for any federal highway projects, 49, 31, 32, 69. There's talks about Mayor Garcetti of, I believe, San Francisco or Los Angeles, right? Being named as transportation secretary. So what are y'all projecting any particular philosophy or approach? Of course, every administration has an approach and philosophy to federal highways. So what are y'all particularly seeing? I did see last week where I saw a podcast, I believe, where somebody predicted the Biden administration would be more along the lines of, we want shovel worthy versus shovel ready. That was kind of the slogan that they used when they concluded it, but they mentioned Mayor Garcetti being possible front runner for the appointment for DOTD.
Just a Couple of comments. Both the House and the Senate have drafted some long-term transportation bills. Our current transportation bill actually expired September 30th. It was included in with the continuing resolution. So we have what they call a CR for an additional year for transportation versus the 6 months, I think, was for the rest of it. Both the House and the Senate bill have a substantial amount of money in them. They also have more money being directed back to the locals and the local entities, and more direction granted to those entities versus the state level, which I think is a plus for everyone. I guess it's just a simple matter of getting them to sit down together and smash those two different bills together. I think it's unfortunate that I think the election time frame got in the way of those two bills. They both have very, very broad support from both sides of, from both sides of the aisle, and both of them have very broad support within their own committees and jurisdictions. So I really don't think it'll
Right,
be
but Kent, I get where you're going, but it's
long-term
typically
bill.
administration. It's typically administration that will, I know Congress will appropriate the money, but it's typically administration will say, Congress set these monies aside for this amount. Now go do this with that, go do that with this much. And have y'all taken any temperature on where the Biden administration is on federal projects? Or have y'all not? That's what I'm trying to
Not at this point, no.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to.
We've been more following what happens in the House and the Senate side in terms of their transportation bills and their work.
Right, but you would agree that it's going to be the administration that's going to dictate where those dollars are spent.
There'll be a pot within each one of them. They all changed the name, I believe, under the current administration. I think they've called them the bill grants. They've had, there's I guess you'd call it a discretionary pot that used to be the earmark pot. It varies in name and varies in terms of what that administration would like to see.
Okay.
Seen anything formal in terms of what that would be, what that would look like at this time.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Taliaferro.
Yes, sir. Just a couple of quick questions for those who are just zooming in on. I know that we're talking a lot of numbers, mainly money. How much slab are we currently talking about? How many miles are we talking about, just for our viewers' sake?
The build through alternative, which would be build alternative 1 or 2, is roughly 3.5 miles. Build 5, it varies because part of that is complete reconstruction of 31, 32, and part of it is just adding lanes to the
bridge.
So that it's not as easy to compare apples to apples in terms of that type of stuff.
Okay, and also, so if a commuter is traveling from Shreveport to Baton Rouge, how much time using this extra 3-point-something miles would they save time-wise?
I don't remember the time frame off the top of my head, to be honest.
Commissioner Taliaferro, the key is we have a major gap in the middle of the interstate. So the idea is to complete and get a thoroughfare going without having to deviate and get back on again. Get off one location, get back on again.
Right.
So ease of travel will be a convenience that'd be hard to measure, but
sure, I understand. Sure, no worries. Thank you. And this would also, since it's a state highway, state would be responsible for the upkeep, correct?
Yes, sir.
After construction.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
In addition, Mr. Chairman, in addition to that, I want them to make sure they keep in mind by adding lanes to I-220 going across Cross Lake, we're talking about environmental hazards, because chances are you're going to have to add pillars in order to support those lanes.
That's
so
correct.
that means that you would have to go put pillars back into Cross Lake, which has oil and gas under it. That could create an environmental hazard that would cause Freeport another 20 or 30 years without water. So that definitely they need to consider that.
Good point. Thank you, Mr. Rogers, for coming down, and we look forward for that presentation or that email on Friday of Thursday's meeting.
You're welcome.
All right,
Anything else?
Mr. Everson.
I can't, Commissioner Chavez, can I take a moment here?
Yes, sir. Dr. Wilson, go ahead.
Yeah, I can't. Do you want to talk about the service road coming from I-49 to the port? Are you ready to talk about? You want to do?
Yes, I can quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the other projects.
That 49 or 69 to the port?
I-69.
It's going to be 69.
Okay.
Yeah.
Within I-69, what's called SIU 15, that's the portion from roughly from Houghton to Stonewall. It's divided up into 5 sections, one of those sections being from LA1 to I-49. That section had identified some service roads along with it. We had some older earmark funds from the I-69 project that Congress had come through a while back and did a sweep of old earmark funds and took them away. They were talking about doing that again, and in order to keep those funds from going away, we kind of cobbled them all together and said, what can we do with this? Let's get something done. So we're looking at the expansion of that, putting that service road in effect and doing some expansion of that. It would provide a direct connection from the port to I-49 at the Stonewall Frierson exit. That's the LA, I forget the number off the top of my head, but really would provide a more direct access to the port. The total project cost is roughly, it's roughly 32 million. The state, through older earmarks and federal and state matching, would be putting up 15 million. We have appropriated 10.5 million through our STP 200K funds, and the remainder of that would come through match support. Part of that coming from the port, from Caddo Parish, from DeSoto Parish, from multiple different entities. This is another example, I guess you could say, similar to the gate access road, where multiple parties putting in multiple sources of money, everybody working together and collaborating those funds together will help get something done.
Right. And to preserve the corridor as well.
Correct, and it will preserve the corridor. One thing that has been a delay in getting some of the environmental work done for the portion from Stonewall to Tenaha is Texas has always said Louisiana's not doing anything. Why should we begin that environmental process? This will put a stake in the ground, will put something in the works in terms of I-69 within the state of Louisiana.
Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Doc. Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
Okay.
All right.
Are there any other comments, or you want me to go ahead and move on to the next visitor?
Yes, sir. Let's move on to the next visitor.
Great. The next visitor is Mrs. Stacy Brown with the Shreveport-Bossier Convention and Tourism Bureau. And Stacy's here to talk a little bit about their budget.
Hey, Ms. Brown, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, President Chavez and commissioners. I appreciate you having me today to give you a little update on tourism and what's happening, as well as talk a little bit about our budget. You will be receiving a printed copy of our business plan as well as the detailed budget in the next week or so once the final printed version makes it back in. But I'll show you a little bit today. If you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen. All right, here we go. Seems like there's always a little something that goes wrong, but I think we've got it up there. I know we have several members who are fairly new to the commission and are not as familiar with the Convention and Tourist Bureau, so I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview. This is actually from our new campaign called Press Play to get people coming back to our community. And of course, it's not wanting to, there we go, to the next slide. So just to tell you a little bit about the Convention and Tourist Bureau, We are the official destination marketing organization. Our staff work with local businesses to advocate for the tourism industry, and we do work at the local, state, and national level as well. The Tourist Bureau services more than 800 partners in the Shreveport-Bossier area. We have 2 visitor centers, and we manage 4 divisions of the Convention and Tourist Bureau. So one that you're probably most familiar with is the Shreveport-Bossier Sports Commission. We also have a Shreveport-Bossier Film Commission, the Louisiana Holiday Trail of Lights, which is an 8-city partnership in North Louisiana, and the Boom or Bust Byway. Y'all are actually partnering with us on a special interpretive pavilion out at Earl Williamson Park. And Commissioner Burrell, I feel your pain. We've been working on that project for, I think it's about 7 years now with DOTD. So I understand how long these projects take. We also work with a number of marketing partnerships, such as the Shreveport-Bossier Attractions Association, Retire Shreveport-Bossier, and many more. The Tourist Bureau has actually just come up with a new vision and mission to really show the sustainable growth of Shreveport-Bossier based on the shared interests of stakeholders, visitors, and our local community. So the vision is to elevate Shreveport-Bossier, Louisiana as the must-experience cultural and outdoor capital of the Arklatex. And our mission is enriching life through tourism. Obviously, things took a radical turn in March of this year. And as the economy and everything was shut down in March, that did have obviously a very significant impact on visitors and on tourism. So we saw our hotel occupancy as well as our revenue go below 50% for a couple of months. And then we finally saw things starting to pick back up. So needless to say, we had to do some pretty significant budget cuts, but also really pivot the way we were doing business and totally take a new look at new sales and marketing strategies as well as advertising. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But one of the other things we did is to really help our industry learn more about what was happening, what they could expect for the future, and how they could bring visitors back safely to their hotel, restaurants, and attractions. So this gives you a little educational program here. This is from the Travel Outlet Conference, where we hosted Adam Sachs. Adam Sachs is an international tourism economist, and he took the numbers from our area and compared us with Louisiana as well as the United States. And we were severely impacted, but we were well ahead of the US in tourism recovery. Our hotel demand will approach normalcy in the second half of 2021 with full recovery in 2023. So we've got kind of a good curve going up, and then it'll kind of level off a little bit and just slow incremental. So as you can see from our occupancy, we were at down 22% January through July 2020, but the US overall was down 35%. As far as ADR, which is average daily rate at the hotel, we were down 7%, and the US overall was down 18%. And revenue per available room was down 28%, whereas the US overall was down 47%. We were also ahead of Louisiana in our recovery overall as well. Just to kind of show you how much of a difference this has made to us. So in March, our occupancy, we were closed half the month, and so our occupancy dropped 32%. So we ended up at 48% occupancy because we had part of a month that was full and then part pretty vacant. April, we were at 33.4%, which was down almost 49% from our normal. In May, we started inching up a little bit as we started opening back up. We pivoted our advertising campaigns, worked very slowly, watching the travel sentiment index to know when and where to place that advertising and what message to have. And so we saw that increasing up to 46.6% occupancy in May, up to 54.8% in June. Then in July, we were at 58.6% occupancy, down only 12% from 2019, which was phenomenal. Then in August, we jumped up to 61.5%, which was down only 3.3%. But if you remember at the very end of August, I believe it was the 27th, there was Hurricane Laura, which did bring a lot of extra guests into our community. In September, we ended at 66%, which was actually up 12% over 2019. Again, a good bit of that was due to the hurricane. However, we had been successful in our marketing campaigns to drive incremental business as well. So our team is very good at taking lemons and making lemonade. So these are some of our results from January through October of 2020. In the conventions and tourism area, we hosted 50 groups for over 11,000 room nights with over 24,000 people. This is obviously down significantly as the largest number of reduction in groups was in the convention and tourism side, as well as the sports. On the communication side, we started our Plus Play marketing campaign in May, and through the end of October, we had generated over 251,000 website sessions, over 24,000 hotel bookings, with revenue of more than 3.23 million, and over 3,000 airfare bookings. One of the reasons we can be so specific is Expedia was one of our partners in this campaign. So these are our Expedia numbers during that time, directly related to people who saw our advertising and clicked and made a decision based on our advertising to come to Shreveport-Bossier. So these are the numbers, again, only of those who booked through Expedia. If you saw our campaign and said, hey, I'm a loyal Hilton Honors member, I'm going to book through Hilton, our campaign does not count you. So we know we had at least 3.23 million. In the Shreveport-Bossier Sports Commission, we hosted 35 groups with 6,620 room nights with over 50,000 people. Again, we had to significantly reduce those numbers compared to what we originally booked, but we pivoted and were able to rebook things for the future and take some advantage of some other opportunities. One of those opportunities is coming in a few weeks. In December, we have the USA Boxing Nationals. We also took advantage of the opportunity to grab up the Bayou Classic in April of 21. This last weekend, we hosted the Meeting Professionals International Dallas chapter board meeting. We had, I think it was about 15 planners from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We brought them over on a bus to host their meeting here in Shreveport-Bossier. What is really shocking is about half of them had never been to Shreveport-Bossier before. So we tend to think that those people in the Dallas-Fort Worth area all know about us, and they don't. Some of them didn't even know we have casinos. So we still have a lot of work to do and opportunities in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We've done quite a bit to rebuild, redesign a number of our websites, and we have a number of staff members who are involved in various boards on the national as well as local levels. We took this opportunity to bring back the industry consultants who completed our destination assessment in 2019 to really look at how do we redeploy our assets and focus for the next 3-year strategic plan. So this group came in, they met with groups, industry experts, elected officials, as well as just community leaders. Then we sat down with our board and staff and did a retreat. And these are the 4 high-level objectives we came up with: strategic sales and marketing, collaborative experience development, innovative organization, and proactive community engagement. In these meetings, 2 things really rose to the top, very loud and clear. That the community as well as the industry want to see happen for us to really guide our future. One of those is a destination master plan, and the other is a community-wide brand that can be used not only by tourism, but by economic development and our community as a whole to show our pride and bring in investors and visitors. So we worked with MMGY Next Factor. They are national and international leaders in tourism marketing. And we're working on putting together what does that plan look like. So this will be something that's not done in a silo. We will also be working with the cities, the parishes, community leaders, as well as citizens. I know we've got kind of a long program today, so I'm going to kind of skip through some of these slides, but we do have several initiatives under each of those 4 main buckets, and you'll have more details on these in the plan that you actually receive. Just to give you a little bit of an overview of our departments. So in our administrative department, we were able to secure another clean, zero exception audit. I'm very proud of that. Our staff works very hard to make sure that we stay within the proper guidelines and properly document and utilize the funds that are given to us. We also received Destination Marketing Association International's DMAP reaccreditation program. We had to meet, I think it's about 80 standards to make sure that we were doing things the right way according to national standards. We also really looked hard at our processes and procedures and several of our software opportunities and made sure that we were able to save costs and increase productivity. In our communications area, we were able to provide a great return on investment. And just to show you a little bit about that, so for every $1 we invested in the campaign that started in May and ran through July, we generated $8.16 in hotel revenue for our community. So then that trickles into the restaurants, the attractions, the retail shopping, and then generates tax dollars as well. In the convention area, we had to, as you can imagine, pivot very quickly to work with our canceling events to get them to rebook in our community whenever possible for future dates, but also look at things through a different lens and say, you know what, some who were used to driving or flying to other markets are now looking at 2nd and 3rd tier destinations to host their meetings. So we can work with them on future dates. And that was part of bringing in the Meeting Planners International board meeting. We have found over and again, once we get someone to our community, they want to come back. And of course, in the sports area, we had, as you can imagine, about a dozen, only able to host about a dozen events because of the pandemic. However, this last quarter is shaping up very nicely and early 2021. So we are looking forward to hosting even more events in the future. To give you a quick budget overview for 2021, we are budgeting $3.8 million. This is down 16% from what we budgeted or what we received in 2019, which was about $4.5 million, and up about 5% over where we expect to end the year at about $3.6 million. We are expecting to surpass our 2019 numbers in about 2023. So it will be, again, a gradual comeback and will depend on a number of factors. Of course, one of those being COVID-19 and the effect of that, any future closings that we might have, as well as vaccines and that possibility. One of the things in looking at our initial budget, when we had 2 months down 50%, our staff really pulled together and has worked hard throughout the year to look at ways that we could make every dollar produce its very best and cut our budget. Even with that, we were expecting to have to dip into our reserves to keep us going through this year. However, because the staff was so diligent with those budget cuts, and also because of a little bit of effect from the hurricane and the successfulness of our campaigns, we have not had to dip into reserves, and we do not plan to have to for this year. This gives you a little overview of our budget for 2019, how we actually ended up. Our projected for 2020, we do expect to be down a little over $1 million from where we expected to be this year. But we also, as I mentioned, kept those expenditures in line as well. So we've been able to live within our means. Our budget for next year there, you can see a little bit more information where we're expecting to be. And in the budget book that you will receive, that will have even more details. I would be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Brown. I have Commissioner Jackson first and then Commissioner Atkins on the board. Commissioner Jackson, you have the floor. Let me see, he may be muted. Commissioner Jackson? We'll yield for him. Commissioner Atkins, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Ms. Brown. Thanks for joining us. With respect to the resilience of our occupancy and the revenue associated with our hotels vis-a-vis other parts of the state and nation, is that driven by the fact that we have a large portion of our hotels are associated with gaming and there's like a strong continued draw to gaming?
Actually, no. Unfortunately, the gaming is a little bit slower coming back than other areas. We really pivoted our marketing to focus on the outdoors. One area that has done very well is the Boomer Bus Byway and kind of northern Caddo Parish, especially out on Highway 3049 and Highway 1 and Highway 2. We've been able to successfully get people out on our lakes and rivers and bayous, as well as out into the countryside to enjoy all the nature that we have to offer. We have several blessings. One, our location. We are very well situated with the majority of our visitors being drive visitors. Also, we are heavy on the domestic side, and we do usually get some international visitors, but that's not the majority. So we are positioned very well to come back quicker than, say, in New Orleans, that relies very heavy on fly-in visitors as well as international visitors. They also rely a lot on large groups, which those are going to be very slow to come back as well. So we've been able to pivot the leisure visitors, is what we call the general travelers. We've been able to attract them back very quickly. Our sporting events are coming along nicely. Our meetings will be slower to come back. So we've had some meetings, booking some of the smaller meetings, working on booking some of the larger for further out. But we are coming back in those areas as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Jackson, are you with us now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We got you.
Okay, got you. Yeah. I'm Stacy. I appreciate you for coming down. I'm just curious what I was hoping to hear. I didn't hear in the presentation, and what I've been kind of wondering is how to repurpose or find somebody to go into the old Isle Capri Casino, because that is a huge loss, and it's going to create a disproportionate of the funding share. The bulk of the funding was already coming from the Shreveport Caddo side of the river for the Tourism Bureau, because we obviously have more rooms. But now that you've got a whole empty casino over there, what's going on to refill, repurpose, rebrand that particular area? Because that's not something that's going to be, there's not any type of budget adjustments that can just be done to probably make up for that lost revenue.
Well, Commissioner Jackson, there are several things, but first of all, to address the revenue. So actually, Shreveport, Caddo Parish, and Bossier Parish are very close in the number of rooms in each side of the river, and very close on the revenue. So actually, in our budget for 2021, we expect the difference to only be about $60,000 difference in revenue from Caddo Parish and Bossier Parish. And that's taking into account that property being out of service. We have been trying to work with the owners of that property. Unfortunately, at this point, they haven't been real receptive. They are not very forthcoming on what their plans are for the property. It is common knowledge that prior to COVID, that they had tried to move that gaming license a couple of times. And so likely that is one of their goals, is to move that gaming license. However, that then gives us a property that we can repurpose for other things. I have been working with Bossier City as well as the Bossier Economic Development Foundation to look at what are the opportunities for that future use of that property. So it's not just languishing to some degree. However, we've not been able to make as much progress with that as I'd hoped we would.
Can you share with us you said that the rooms were pretty close. Can you share with us a document or something that shows the rooms? Because, you know, I see us outpacing the Bossier area in rooms far and wide as it comes to hotel rooms on this side of the river. So I'm more than happy to be wrong on that. But if you could provide us that information, because just off the top of my head, I'm thinking about just in downtown alone for the hotel rooms. Also, if we could have a conversation with someone, Dr. Wilson, I'm going to probably double back to you on this one. Have a conversation about possibly, as we look to make Walter Jacobs Park a more destination type place, if we could look at possibly a small hotel type venue or something out there, because as I see it, we sponsor a lot of programs, and as I've often said, we don't really directly benefit from those hotel stays as the parish. When we don't have a hotel, I know we have the RVs. I think there's a little piece of the RVs that come off of there, but with regard to hotel rooms, I think the parish is significantly lacking out in the parish area.
So Commissioner Jackson, I don't know if you're where you can see your screen. I just shared my screen again, so you could see the.
I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone. So if you could forward that, I didn't get that document that you're sharing. I think all we got was like the budget synopsis.
The printers, but just to tell you, so our actual tax revenue from the hotel occupancy tax from Caddo Parish last year for 2019 was $1,989,783. The tax revenue from Bossier Parish was $1,917,564. So there was what was that, just a little over $63,000 or $62,000 between those two. They're very close. And it's not as much about the number of hotel rooms, but it's about the rate that you're able to get.
I understand, but I'm more concerned about the number of hotel rooms, and I'd also like to see if we could get, if you could send that to me. And you said that number that's just named out, was that taken into consideration the Diamond Jack's closure? Or it does not?
No, it does not, because Diamond Jack's did close during 2020. But currently,
so the difference is probably going to be great. So the difference is probably going to be greater than 60,000 once it's all said and done for this year.
It probably will be for this year, yes.
Okay. That's it for me, Mr. President. I'll look forward to getting that document. I'm on the phone. All we got was like the budget synopsis. So if we could get that particular document, I'd be more than happy to peruse through it.
Yeah, it's at the nice printed one is at the printer, so we shall have that for you. If not next week, the following week.
I'm really not what? Can you hear me, Mario?
Yes, sir. I can hear you now.
I know this probably will upset John Atkins, but I'm not a big fan of killing trees. So if you can send mine electronically, I'll be just happy.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Commissioner Hopkins, I have you on the board.
I just wanted to thank Ms. Brown for her work on this and bringing it to us today. I've had the pleasure of working with her in different capacities over the last 20 plus years. And so she's always been really helpful to the North Caddo area. And as we get ready for the December 5th Christmas on Caddo, I know they played a big part in helping us, along with our Parks Department, get ready for that event. So I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you. We have really looking forward to Christmas on Caddo again this year. It'll be a little different with the social distancing, but they've really worked hard to make sure they provide a great program. And I want to say a special thank you for Commissioner Hopkins, but especially to the staff as well, Dr. Wilson. And we've been working with several of the staff for a number of years on various byway projects, as well as other areas. And the staff at the commission does a tremendous job. So we really appreciate them.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. I have nobody else on the board to ask any questions. Commissioners, if you want to tell Ms. Brown anything, go ahead and get on really quick. If not, we'll move along. I see none.
Thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, that brings us to our next item on the agenda. Our next visitor is from the American Rose Center, and it's their director, John Corkin.
Hey, John, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today, Mr. President, and to all the commissioners. Excited to tell you about some of the things that we've been doing at the American Rose Center. Let me get my screen up so I can share that. And there we go.
Do you want me to share that for you, John?
Just 1 second. It should be up now. I just had to give it permission.
Okay.
I apologize.
No problem. Just let us know if you need us to share it instead.
All right. And did it come up? Can y'all see my screen now? If not, I'll go ahead and let you share that.
I'm not seeing it, so I'll go ahead and share this.
Absolutely. As many of you may know or may not know, the American Rose Center, a lot of people come and go, you know, I've got married here. We come out for Christmas in Roseland. But a lot of people don't know this is actually the headquarters for the American Rose Society for the whole United States. In fact, we have over 230 Rose Societies throughout the United States, all the way from California to New York to down in Florida, all through the United States. And one of the things that's been very special about this board is loving Caddo Parish, loving Shreveport-Bossier, and understanding the importance the gardens are to Shreveport-Bossier. And about 3.5 years ago, our previous president and our now president came down and started looking at our gardens, and they took a real interest in it and decided that they were going to redo our gardens. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, because we have done tremendous improvements to the gardens of the American Rose Center. If you could go to the next slide. The first thing that you'll see when you come in is a brand new sign. This is not particularly when we were trying to totally redo the American Rose Center. Actually, it was a truck that decided to take out our sign. The first thing that we did in the Great Garden Restoration is put up a new sign, and one that if something accidentally hit it, it would still be there. So we're glad to have a new sign at the entrance to the American Rose Center. We're so thankful for everyone that made the American Rose Center possible back in the 1970s. Many community leaders allowed this jewel to be here, and it's even more special today. Next slide, please. So one of the first things we wanted to do is we wanted to have a plan of what we wanted to do to the gardens of the American Rose Center. We were blessed to have a relationship with Jackson and landscape and garden design. Some of y'all might recognize they also breed roses and grow roses. And they helped us design what we were going to build at the American Rose Center. And I have good news. We have already built part of it already. But they came up with the Clockworks gardens. If you see the design of the garden, you will notice it looks like the inside of a watch. That's where they got their inspiration. And each one of these clockwork gardens are going to tell a story. That's what's so special about the gardens of the American Rose Center and the new gardens that we're putting in. These gardens will tell the history of the rose in America. This has never been done. I've been to California to gardens, all the way on the East Coast. Nobody in the world does that, and you're going to have it right here in Caddo Parish. The first garden that we've already built, which you'll see in just a minute, it has the modern roses, the roses from 2000 to 2020. The second garden that you will see, we're almost to the point of being able to build. We only have a few more dollars to fundraise to get that garden built. It will be all the roses from 2000 to 1950. The third garden that you will see will be shrubs and roses from 1950 all the way back to those kind of garden roses. And the final circle, which will be huge, will be the roses from the old garden roses like your grandmother had, all the way back to the species roses that came from China. So it's something that our board and a lot of community leaders have already gotten behind, and we're very thankful for their support. And we couldn't have done this without their help in first building the first circle and some of the other improvements that I'm going to show you to the garden. And if you could go to the next slide. This is another drawing that I wanted to share with you. One of the things that we wanted to do while we were doing the Clockworks garden, and when you came in, is when this garden was originally built, the gardens were done like patio gardens that you may have at the back of your house. Well, as the previous executive director, Laura Seaball, and I went out and saw a garden out in California, we just noticed the impact. It was like wow factor. This is beautiful. And so with a lot of discussion, talking about with our president and our vice president at the time, we wanted to right size the gardens of the American Rose Center. And to do that, first and foremost, you'll see later, we had to deal with the deer. And we wanted to make it where we can mow it, and it looked excellent. So what you're seeing now is what the garden will look like when it's finished. I know there's a lot of gardens that are behind the administration building. We'll be keeping some of those, but a lot of those will be left to grass because these are the gardens that we want the public to see. And one thing I'd like to say, these gardens are free. Anybody can come from the public and come to these gardens and visit them at no cost. So it's a huge attraction for the community. And I want to thank Stacy for what they do for advertising the American Rose Society and bringing in tourists. They're very good at making that happen for us. If we could go to the next slide. This is the first circle. This is a view from the drone. You can see me down at the bottom flying our drone. We repurposed our gardens, and the first garden that you will see is the McFarland Garden. It's the one right behind me that's kind of older concrete. That garden was repurposed. The reason why it's called the McFarland Garden is because that is the father of the American Rose Society. He was responsible not only for that, for the creation of a lot of the national parks. He was involved with Teddy Roosevelt during that time. So we're excited that he was a part of the American Rose Society and a father of the American Rose Society. The garden that I'm standing in is the first circle. And if you think that one's big, wait till you see the fourth circle. It is going to be absolutely beautiful. But these roses, you can see this was this spring. We still had a lot of dirt from the construction. I'm glad to report that the grass has grown back. And that's thanks to something I'm going to show you here in a few minutes. But we have one more that we hope to start building of the second circle of that Clockworks, and that should happen hopefully in the next 2 to 3 months. We're hoping to get construction. We're back. We're already having the drawings worked on right now as we speak. Next slide, please. One of the first things that we had built when we started our Great Garden Restoration was a gift from Pat Shanley and John Del Vecchio, previous president of the American Rose Society, and they put in this beautiful garden gate pavilion. This is the entrance so that when you walk into the garden after passing the reflection pool, that your eyes will see a huge wow factor of roses. And we wanted to have a statement when you walked into our garden. And thanks to Pat Shanley and John Del Vecchio, we now have that garden gate pavilion. Next slide. This is a signature of the American Rose Center, working with some local contractors here. And we were able to get this painted and get it back up to shape. And that is one of the other things in our Great Garden Restoration that we wanted to make sure of. Not only did we want to build new gardens, we wanted to take care of what we had. And that was one of the things that we did. This is our signature Carillion Towers, our signature monument. So many people have come to Christmas in Roseland, had choirs here to sing, and we wanted to make sure this monument was back up to just like it was when it was initially installed. And I can tell you with this new white and with the sound system and all that stuff, it is absolutely beautiful and something to look at. By the way, this is also where we have our international rose trials. We're one of only 4 places in the United States that has international rose trials, and they happen right here in Caddo Parish. Once every quarter, we have people come in and judge the roses. And a lot of times you will see those roses when you go into the store with different awards. That's what a rose trial is. But we're very proud of this monument, and they are known as Carillion Towers. Next slide, please. We also like partnering with different organizations. This is one that I can tell you, this is a Lions Club Legacy project that they, in honor of their 100th years, and we partnered with Shreveport Lions Club, and they helped us build a pavilion and an accessibility walkway, and it is a beautiful addition. It comes right off the back of the Klima Event Center, and beside this, if you see the wall there on the walkway, that is going to be a sensory garden for special needs kids. And it's something that's special to me as well, having a child with special needs. So I'm so excited to have the accessibility walkway and pavilion thanks to the Lions Club. So if you're a Lion, thank you. Next slide, please. The most important part of our garden. We just finished this. We installed a state-of-the-art irrigation system. Believe it or not, our irrigation system was probably 20 to 30 years old. And that's part of one of the things that we decided we were going to be in the real business of growing roses. And so we replaced the mulch, we replaced all the soil in all our beds, and we put in a new irrigation system. In fact, if you come out now, it still kind of looks like Groundhog Day out here if you're in Caddyshack. But we're very proud of this irrigation system, and you can even control it from a smartphone. So we're able to monitor our watering of the roses throughout the garden. So I cannot wait till May when I invite each and every one of you and whoever's listening from the public, come out in May when we're in our spring bloom. This is going to be absolutely gorgeous this year. Due to COVID, we had the gates shut at the time, but I will tell you, we had a beautiful bloom, and I can only imagine what it's going to be like when we come into next year. Next slide, please. Now, this is something that's very important. A lot of people wouldn't think about this, but a lot of you come to Christmas in Roseland, and there's restrooms. There's obviously some in our administration, along with Klima Hall, but this is down by our train station, and kids love riding the train. And they had looked in a little bit disrepair. They didn't look great. And one of the things I believe that you should have nice, clean bathrooms. And so we refurbished our bathrooms at the American Rose Center, and they look absolutely great. So anywhere you go at the Gardens of the American Rose Center, there are nice restrooms. Keep going forward. This is also something that we're very thankful for. These are the new concrete walkways throughout the garden. They've been there for about 3 years now, but I didn't know if many of you knew about them. We used to have asphalt through the garden, and everywhere that you walk now is a concrete pathway, which makes it very easy for wheelchairs and safely walking through the garden. So we're very thankful for those new concrete walkways that go through the garden. And by the way, where this is where we're going to have some brand new Christmas lights for the Christmas in Roseland. If you could go next slide, please. New electricity. One of the things that we have wanted to do over the years is get new electricity throughout the gardens. This has been a blessing for us due to being able to expand out, making more Christmas lights for Christmas in Roseland, things that we do throughout the year, such as having weddings, because that's one of the things that helps generate revenue for the American Rose Center besides direct gifts. And so we wanted to be able to have a wedding anywhere in that garden. And if you know, people like to have lights and sound systems. And so there's not a place in that core garden that we don't have electricity now. And so that's one of the other huge improvements that we made to the gardens of the American Rose Center. Next slide, please. In honor of Marilyn Wellen, our great garden restoration coordinator, her husband dedicated a garden, and this is a beautiful statue. It's the Angel of Hope. And this garden has all new plants in it, this brand new beautiful statue. And what makes a statue special is this statue is in about 80 gardens throughout the United States. And every December 6th, there's a ceremony to be held for people that have lost their loved ones, specifically children. And it's something that we committed to as a garden to do. And so we will have that again this year. But it's a very special place that a lot of people come visit now just to reflect and have peace while they're in the garden to think about their loved ones. So we're so happy to have this Angel of Hope statue in our garden. Next slide, please. Many of you have probably attended the Klima Events Center. We totally repainted the outside of the Klima Events Center. It looks brand spanking new. And we're very proud of what we've been able to do. Also at the Klima Events Center, if you could go to the next slide. There used to be steps there. Now this is a pre-COVID picture, but we were able to put these steps. They are perfectly positioned for a bride to come. We're very glad to have those. And we snapped this picture because the other thing we wanted to do is we have work days out at the Garden of the American Rose Center where people come out and volunteer. And we always wanted people to just sit down and have a sack lunch and sit on those steps. We didn't even ask them to. And magically, those steps did exactly what they were designed to, which is to be able to just sit out and enjoy looking at the reflection pool and the beautiful plants throughout the garden. So they were sitting there having a good time. And I love sharing this picture. Next slide, please. Oh, back the other one. One other thing, look at now, y'all are the first to see this. I sent this to my president. We are working with our committee here locally in our advisory board to redo the Klima Event Center. We wanted to get it into the 21st century. This is a rendering of some improvements that we plan on doing in January to the Klima Event Center to make it where brides will want to have weddings and use this area even more. And so you'll see we have new lighting that'll be installed, the chandeliers. It's currently kind of a brown color. We're going to a gray, a little bit more neutral. So we're very excited about the improvement that we're making to the Gardens of the American Rose Center. And I thank you for letting me share with you the things that we're doing. And I invite you to come out for Christmas in Roseland during the spring or anytime. And if you reach out to me personally, I'll take you on a personal tour of the Gardens of the American Rose Center where you can see it up close and personal. And thank you, Commissioner Epperson, for always supporting us.
Thank you for that presentation. I have Commissioner Atkins with his hand up that has a couple questions. Commissioner Atkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. John, I couldn't tell from your diagram the scale. The wording was too small. If you did have a scale there, can you tell me how many acres is the garden, is your facility as a whole, and how much of it is under cultivation and roses and other flora?
We're 118 acres is the size of the whole piece of property. Where you're looking at that will be in our core garden will be approximately around 8 or 9 acres. So that will be that core garden part you see. If you've been out to the Rose Center back in the back, we will still have roses by our administration building, and it'll have the Cascade roses, but a lot of those other gardens, the test gardens back there will no longer be back there, but we'll still be using that property for people to come out and have picnics during Christmas in Roseland. A lot of times we also, people have family reunions out here, and we have a whole orchard of camellias that people can come and have lunch or dinner in. So, and a picnic.
Okay, thank you for that. And did you you mentioned some deer challenges previously. Did you get that under control?
I did.
If so, how?
It's interesting that you brought that up, and I thought I'd put that slide in there. What we were able to do, the gentleman that actually invented the knockout rose, the rose that probably half of you or more have planted in your yard, Mr. Will Radler, we were discussing with him about our deer problem, and he introduced us to deer fencing. If you come out to the Rose Center in that core garden all the way around, we have deer fencing. You will not see it at all. It's amazing. But it has totally kept the deer out of the Rose Garden, and we're very thankful to have it. And that was actually the first project we did for restoration, was to keep the deer out.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner. John, the Christmas in the Roseland, when is the start date on that?
We start the day after Thanksgiving on Black Friday and go all the way to the 23rd. The dates will be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the first 2 weekends. And then on, I believe, the 17th, we go all the way to the 23rd, which is that Thursday.
And then and you said it's free to the public, so anyone can come out and the kids can enjoy the lights?
Well, Christmas in Roseland is not free to the public.
Okay.
Largest fundraiser of the year to help support the gardens. And if you are coming to Christmas in Roseland, you need to visit rose.org, where you can purchase tickets. That's where we're sending everybody. You can purchase them there. We have a scanner, so we can have contactless entry, even though you have cars coming all the way through. And of course, we'll be just doing social distancing throughout Christmas in Roseland.
That's exciting. Thanks for coming on and sharing. I have Commissioner Epperson would like to speak as well. Commissioner Epperson?
Yes, John, thank you for coming out, and I'm sure you're going to be overwhelmed this year with everybody being pent up. So I'm pretty sure you're going to have a big success with Christmas in Roseland. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. And anybody that you talk to, commissioners, let them know to definitely come online, buy the tickets. There's a certain amount of tickets that'll be available each hour, so that we're able to do social distancing. And so we're just thankful that we're able to have that tradition after 38 years of Christmas in Roseland and the 40-something years that we've been in Caddo Parish.
Thank you, John. Mr. Everson?
All right. The next item on our agenda is the update from the Downtown Shreveport Unlimited Executive Director, Mary Helen Mars.
Mary Helen, greetings.
Hey there. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for waiting through all those speakers as well.
No, I'm getting lots of good information. I didn't, especially about the Christmas in Roseland. My kids love that, and I had no idea we had to buy tickets in advance. So this has been very informative. So Downtown Shreveport Unlimited, we are working on quality of life improvement projects for downtown Shreveport. This year, we are partnering with the Tourist Bureau to produce Rockets Over the Red. So that event will happen, of course, with social distancing, and we ask that all patrons wear masks. And that's the Saturday after Thanksgiving, November the 28th. The event will start at 3 p.m., but the fireworks will happen at 7 p.m. And the city will light the Christmas tree at 6:45 that day. In conjunction with Rockets Over the Red, we've got the Mudbug Market, which is a Christmas market at Riverview Hall. That's both Friday, November 27th and Saturday, the 28th. And then we also have been working on a what we're calling Light Up the 318 Christmas light fundraiser. As you know, the city of Shreveport puts up Christmas lights along Clyde Fant Parkway around the Christmas tree. And this year there was some difficulties getting full funding for all of the lights. So DSU, one of our missions is lighting in downtown Shreveport. We've helped with the procurement of the Christmas tree itself, along with the Christmas wreaths that you see on the light posts in downtown. And so we are fundraising to assist to get the rest of the Christmas lights put up. And so that's really why I'm here, is to tell you guys thank you for your contribution. It is greatly appreciated.
I wanted to see if anyone is on here with their hand up. Any commissioners had any questions? If not, Mary Helen, thank you for coming down and speaking. It's great for the public to watch all the different departments and agencies that have been helping in Shreveport and Caddo Parish. A lot of people, they think because of the pandemic that nothing has been going on. But as you can see, there's a lot of moving parts in government, and there's a lot of people that are working behind the scenes doing a lot of great things in Shreveport and Caddo Parish. So it's great to have all these updates between John and Mary Helen and Miss Brown. Thank you guys for all coming down and spending your Monday with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Mr. Everson?
All right, that brings us to reports. We have, we're at administrator report.
Yeah. Commissioner Chavez?
Yes, sir.
I have about a 45-minute update for you guys.
Okay.
Hey, just kidding you, sir. Just kidding you.
Hey, work to work, Doc. I think some people's hearts just sunk for a minute, though.
Commissioners, good afternoon to you all. Just a brief comment, sir. Everyone was emailed a risk assessment survey for the internal audit risk assessment we have to do. We would greatly appreciate if you all would fill that out and hit send, please, so we can have that information back, so we can so the auditors can compile a schedule for the next series of audits. And that's all I have for you today, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
All right. Also do note that you have October financials that are attached. And Dr. Wilson, did y'all have an update on the early voting situation?
Is that where we are?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Good afternoon. Well, good evening, commissioners. I'm not going to speak 45 minutes either. I just wanted to get a brief update. At this pivotal point in history, I believe it's advantageous to continue working on establishing additional early voting sites in Caddo. And it's equally important to provide additional tools, which I'll speak on later, and keep the public informed on this initiative. I know there's a runoff election December 5th, and early voting begins this Saturday through next Saturday, excluding Sundays, which we won't likely see any changes to the prior early voting process in Caddo. However, at this time, I'll yield to Dr. Wilson or Mrs. Bryant to please provide an update on early voting locations and if there are any additional requirements by Caddo Parish Commission.
Commissioner Gage Watts, there's nothing else that we need to do at this present time. I believe Ms. Bryan may have had some discussions with Ms. Sibley concerning this matter.
Yes.
Ms. Erica, you want to offer any comments at this time, please?
Yes, sir. I spoke with the registrar and he said he's taking the information that you all provided in your last resolution, as well as some other information from the state, and he will be presenting to you all. He's going to research those items and present to you all some recommendations and informations based on the information they want to get past this December 5th election, and hope to have something to you all in 2021.
Okay. Did he give a prospective date on how soon we could expect to see what his research?
He said he would like to get past the December 5th, and it will be sometime in 2021, knowing that we have a March as well as an April election, and trying to see, because those would be less turnout. So it may be something to try to work towards in order to test the process, but hopefully early 2021, he should have something to you.
That's great. I think it probably would be best to test, do a test run on a smaller election than a work election like we just seen. That was all the questions that I had at this time. I just wanted to get a public update on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Watts. Mr. Everson?
That brings us to commission remarks, communiques.
Any commissioners like to get on the board via communiques? Go ahead and hit participation and raise your hand. I have Commissioner Burrell. Go ahead.
Commissioner Burrell, you're muted. You're muted.
Thanks, Mr. President. I was just going to say, I don't think we've met since the national election has taken place. I'm hoping that most of you, if not all, were satisfied with the results. I know our president wasn't. And the concern that I have is that we're not moving forward on the transition. And if you all have any influence in order to make that happen, I think we need it, because we don't need to put our country in jeopardy, regardless of what the outcome may be. So again, I just wanted to make that point, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. I have no one else on the board. Commissioners, if you wanted to speak, maybe we'll go under later communiques, and Mr. Everson will move along.
All right. Did you have a president's report at this time?
I'll yield that till Thursday for the essence of time.
Great. So under old business, we don't have any old business on the agenda today, and that brings us to new business, where our first item is to authorize the introduction of ordinance number 6019 of 2020. It's an ordinance authorizing the use of budgeted emergency aid funds in the Reserve Trust Fund for the year 2020 to provide emergency aid of $500 to 500 families affected by COVID-19, and to otherwise provide with respect thereto. From Commissioner Gage Watts.
So move.
Second.
Got motion by Commissioner Watts, second by Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Watts, would you like to speak on that?
Yes, sir. Good evening again, commissioners. This emergency ordinance is in direct response to the public health emergency, COVID-19. I humbly ask for your support to provide allocations of $500 for up to 500 households in Caddo Parish. The dollars are already allocated for emergency disaster assistance, and we could begin making an impact in the next few weeks. This will not be applicable for all citizens. However, I feel compelled, if we are able to help at least 50 households in most of our prospective districts, we will make an impact while we continue to find alternatives to help support our community. It is designed to provide to those households whose finances have been directly affected by COVID-19, whether it's job loss, family members' income loss in their household, unpaid leave, business closed, facing evictions, reduced schedules, and have not received related assistance. There are many who are just above the threshold who don't qualify for SNAP or mortgage rental assistance, and many who are faced with the harsh realities of unemployment assistance dissolving, along with another major plant closing in our community. The lines for the food are stretched at food banks, and hopefully soon we're able to help Commissioner Young's vision come to fruition by planting food trees along public spaces where there are known food deserts. Sadly, there are many uncertainties when or if a stimulus check will be issued. Some of the elderly and other citizens never received the previous checks. The thought of facing winter months, many will need utilities assistance. These funds can be used to help households with those basic needs. This will be a one-time payment, limited to one payment per household, made directly to applicant. Experts have stated that direct financial assistance is the best tool to provide relief to working families, injecting money back into the community. The application's criteria will consist of: 1, must be a resident of Caddo Parish with valid identification, a rental lease or mortgage statement. 2, have not received related assistance, specifically rent or mortgage assistance or utilities. 3, provide a statement about how COVID-19 has financially impacted their household. 4, completed application, proof of income at or below the area median income using the Medicaid requirement threshold. Applications approved will be on the first come, first served basis, and funds will be available until all funds are exhausted. There are few organizations like Catholic Charities or CCAA that could serve as proxy for the application process. Commissioners, Caddo has the opportunity to respond to this growing problem by being a part of the solution to provide some relief during this pandemic. Again, I ask my colleagues for their support in passing this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Watts. I see Commissioner Atkins on the board. Commissioner Atkins.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes, sir.
May I get a point of information before we go further? Would you
Yes,
ask
sir.
would you ask everyone, with the exception of who's speaking and the host, to please mute? Please mute, because we're hearing coughing and all kind of stuff like that, and we can't understand. Unless you are addressed to speak, please keep your mute.
Thank you, Mr. Epperson. Commissioner Atkins, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate Commissioner Gage Watts' well thought out proposal here. It's obvious from the support she just read off regarding how this proposal would be structured, that she's thought through it well. And I'd remind all of our colleagues that I think that the commission as a whole has come together and supported every coronavirus initiative that came through the commission that I can think of right now, funding for every initiative related to the coronavirus that's come through. But for me personally, when you get down to providing funding for 500 individual households, that's not a path I want to pursue. When you talk about who all has been affected by the coronavirus in our community, I think everyone in our community has been affected by the coronavirus in one way or another, and in many cases, multiple ways. And I think just carving out 500 people to provide funding in this way is not a practical outcome. So for that reason, I'm not going to support forwarding it to the full agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. For the author, Commissioner Watts, I was reading on there. What about, I know we stated some people that had financial hardships in regards to pay. How are we going to take the fact that they got the unemployment? Is it for individuals that did not get unemployment from the state, or how did you want to work that? I didn't see that in the literature.
I did not include that in the literature because some did, and some is dissolving right now for some citizens. If I could, I just wanted to say to Commissioner Atkins, thank you for your comments, but it is one of our responsibilities to include providing economic opportunities. And at this moment in time, I think it's a priority for me. I appreciate your comments and I understand your gestures, but we cannot help everyone. And as I stated, that we hope that we can continue to look for other ways to help more people. Everyone is facing economic challenges during this pandemic, but I will say that there are some who are really struggling more than others at this time. And that's who we really need to help right now. Help those who are, at the verge of losing their homes or, being homeless at this time or not being able to provide those meals or, for their family. So that is where my heart is with that. And back to you, President Chavez.
Thank you, Commissioner Watts. And I'll be moving this forward, but I'll get with you offline because that's one thing. I did see a lot of people that worked in maybe the restaurant industry where they ended up making a lot more, like $800 a week for the unemployment. So I want to make sure that we are helping the ones that were hurt the most.
Yes.
Not just the ones that lost their job, but I'll move this forward and you and I can get together before Thursday. I see Commissioner Hopkins on here. Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes, sir. Ms. Gage Watts, you always do have a big heart, and I appreciate that. I do have some concerns on this legislation. I know we have tried to do everything we could locally with childcare and small business and different things like that. And I know the state has an unemployment fund that's been almost totally raided, and I think we will have a stimulus package here soon. But I'm afraid of wading off into this water, because what happens if we don't have 500 and we have $750,000 worth of applicants? I mean, I think it puts us in a situation I'm not sure we're ready for, and for that reason, I'm not sold on supporting this time. But I do appreciate you bringing at least something to the floor. I wish I had an alternative. I could tell you today that, well, I think we ought to do it this way, but I don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hopkins. Commissioner Jackson.
Commissioner Jackson, you're muted. Commissioner Jackson, you're muted.
Could I go if I'm next? Maybe he'll come in.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Epperson. If Stephen gets back on, we'll bring him at the bottom. Go ahead.
Oh, I'd just like to state, the state legislature in the session, they did a deal for $300, remember? On a first come, first served basis. Everybody understood. The first one that came, they were served, and once the funds went out, that was it. So the state had 300. They did their part. So I think if whatever we could do, we do our part. Every little bit of help. And I'm not banking on anything that's going to happen up in DC. So, I think it'll be unconscionable and almost a sin for us to have something that we can do to help people, even if we can't help everybody. But a little bit of something is better than a whole lot of nothing. So I'm going to be supportive of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Jackson, you back on with us? I see Commissioner Burrell. I'll let you go ahead and you take the floor, Commissioner Burrell. We'll just wait for Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was thinking through this when Commissioner Gage Watts had talked to me about this, and I was like some of the others, whether or not we were actually putting money out here and not able to help as many people as we would like. And as Commissioner Hopkins made the statement that we would possibly be looking at another stimulus soon, I guess I watched too much national news because I don't see anything right now. We still have an impasse in Congress on this. And as long as our president is holding out and not transitioning, what I'm hearing is that they may not even have one until after January 20th. So from that perspective, I'm very much concerned that they will not have any monies, or there will be people who will have a hardship, especially during the holidays, the time of giving, and the fact that they, may be homeless. They may not have the, even food for their families. And 500, families, I know that that's not much. But then again, we can't do it for everybody. And if the criteria is set up properly, I would rather give it to some that it would benefit until such time that we can get our politics straightened out. That's my biggest issue, because right now we are all being held hostage by politics, and we are in the political arena. So we should do everything that we can, even on the local level, to be more congenial and more compassionate at this time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Jackson, are you back on with us? No.
I don't see him.
Commissioner, I'll text him. Commissioner Taliaferro, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I do appreciate Commissioner Gage Watts' emotional interest and passion for helping her fellow man, and I do appreciate it as well. I mean, we're all affected by COVID in some form or fashion. This is just my personal opinion that I just don't believe this is the role of government, especially local government, with the funds that we don't have. And if we're going to spend $250,000, I'm just concerned on who decides who gets this. And I understand my fellow commissioners' intent that if we can help 500 people, that's great. But I think we saw this even during the mask distribution, that when we ran out of masks, people were very upset. And there becomes, hey, what about mine? I'm suffering just as much as my neighbor. And we were fortunate that we were going to get resupplied with our mask. And I understand that that's maybe apples and oranges, but we knew that there was a resupply coming in, and we could promise our constituents that there would be more coming. We can't promise that there will be more coming after the 500 gets their share. And I think we have enormous nonprofits that this is their wheelhouse. This is what they do. And I don't think this is the commission's wheelhouse. And so that's just my personal opinion going forward. But I do appreciate the effort, and I do appreciate the goodwill. But I'd like to see us kind of, working towards another direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jackson, you back on the board?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to move this to maybe the Long Range or Economic Development Committee for further discussion.
I'll second that. You'd like to speak on that motion, Commissioner Jackson?
Well, I guess it's consistent with what the same motion that I did for Commissioner Talaferro. And again, I'm not committing one way or the other to be for or against this or Commissioner Talaferro. I just think that, we ought to give some due diligence, some additional due diligence to this particular one, since I guess we would be handing out rebates, or we be handing out checks. I don't know if we checked with legal to see if this would be considered a prohibitive donation. I'm not sure. I have some additional questions that I would like to. I didn't, in all fairness, I just got back in town this morning. I didn't have a chance to look through a lot of the agenda. So just would like to vet and do our due diligence. I don't know if this would be a one reader, since it's proposed or written up as an emergency ordinance. So would this be one reading, Donna, or two? How would we handle this? My other questions are, and I have them written out as I've just been sitting here listening. My connection kind of got lost, but just some things that I'd like for us to do our due diligence on and try to get back. What I am concerned about is that I know that the city of Shreveport has received a lot of CARES Act money that has not been distributed. And as I have said, I believe I copied everybody on the email this morning, indicating that, we have not been reimbursed for the testing that we did. And we were the first entity in the entire state to do testing. And somehow the city and the sheriff's office got reimbursed. They got millions of dollars, and they got millions of dollars to pay for police, fire, and sheriff officers who were probably out on sick leave. And I'm not anti-law enforcement, but I want us to also have a conversation with our legislators or with the governor's office or with the Division of Administration to see if we will be reimbursed our monies. We approve things with the hope and in good faith that we were going to be reimbursed. And now they're telling us, we've reimbursed the city, we reimbursed the sheriff's office, but that testing that y'all did, or those sanitation kits that you bought, or those masks that y'all purchased, hold up. We'll get to y'all if we got some money left over. And then they did a whole new supplemental appropriation for, I say, East Baton Rouge Parish police officers. So I want to be clear. I'm definitely not opposed to this. I think it's a very progressive idea. I think people need the help. I think just before I lost my connection, somebody was saying there was a hope that Congress was going to do something. I don't have much confidence in that right now. From what I'm reading, I tend to do more reading than listening to the news. But from what I read, I don't necessarily know that that's the most optimistic thing that's going to happen. So I'd love for us to kind of tighten it up a little bit. And hopefully we get it in the committee where we could turn it around pretty fast and get consideration on it. I guess if it's an emergency ordinance, we can have an emergency meeting on it to get it moving. But definitely want to make sure we tighten things up. I try to find ways to support legislation as opposed to not support it. So that's just my position. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Vice President Johnson, is you on the board?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. President. I guess one thing I've heard many people say is that they appreciate Stormy's heart about this. We also share the same passion as citizens of Caddo Parish. It shouldn't just be one person passion outweighs everybody else. We know everyone has been impacted by this. Some have been impacted more than others. And so this is something small. I mean, you take a look at some of the things we've invested money in. When you talk about EAP, that was like $2.5 million. We invested $1 million in some dirt at a park that really is not doing what it was supposed to be doing. So there's opportunities in which we have put large sums of money out, and basically you hadn't got any kind of return back. We even with the CARES Act stuff, there was just a deal about not doing well. There was a deal about not giving occupational taxes, giving the owners occupational taxes relief. Well, I mean, how is that going to impact the parish? At least with this is going to be money that's going to trickle back into the economy and into our system. It's not like it's going to leave Shreveport. It's going to stay within Caddo Parish because they're going to be paying utilities, buying food. So this is something that will come back into our system one way or the other. Whereas some of that other stuff, you lost it and you won't get it back. So I'm in favor of supporting this until Thursday. And then from Thursday, we can, if we need to fine tune between now and then, that's fine. But I'm good with advancing it now. Thank you.
Thank you, VP Johnson. I'm with Commissioner Jackson on the moving it to the committee just because I'd like to see, you mentioned, VP, the utilities and the food. You know, we have the food bank as the nonprofit here locally, and then there was utility assistance. And I'm on board with everybody else on Stormy's heart, and I know everybody else here has a great heart, and there's a lot of people that do need it. Going to committee would allow us, I think, to have the time to look at the people that did get unemployment or paycheck assistance, and then truly identify who really needs it. I know there's a lot of things that we can say that we spent money on. We did that thing, for instance, where we helped some citizens repair their roofs when that last storm came through because there was nobody else that would help them. And we do have some money in the budget and in the parish that when it comes to disasters and emergencies as such, that we can help some people. I just don't want us to help people that already have money or people that went and got a surplus of revenue from a bunch of different sources and they got extra food, got utility paid, and got time off work. There is truly some people that need some help. And I think by this going to a committee, we can shake some bushes and knock on some doors and actually figure out who those people are and more fine tune this piece of legislation to help the truest in need among us. So I'll be supporting Commissioner Jackson's. I like what Stormy brought forward, and I think that will give us some time to better vet this.
Mr. Chairman, point of clarification.
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
You just made a statement that there are people who would probably be going to different agencies or programs and collecting, I guess, some sort of resources, probably at the expense of others. Do we have any indications of that? Because that's a very general statement. I can understand how that happened and take place, but in the case of an emergency that we're in now, I think for those that get resources, they are pretty well scrutinized. I know that they have a checklist that they go through, and they just don't throw out stuff. Maybe the food bank, I can see that. Something like that. But when it comes down to monies or resources for utility bills, there's sort of a check and balance on that. So I don't want us to always generalize that because we have those different agencies out there that they are going from one to the other and becoming rich behind this type of thing. That's just my point of clarification.
I got you. No, I didn't mean getting rich by any means. I mean that we're actually getting paychecks. There's a lot of people that were living right above the poverty level that still went to work, that did not stay home, and they did not want the government help. But now I think they find themselves at the situation where we may be facing another shutdown, and they are at the point where they don't know where to make ends meet. But Commissioner Jackson did bring up a valuable point: is this even legal? And I think maybe via committee, we can figure out, can we do direct donations to citizens via a check? So I think there are a couple questions that we need to look at with our legal team, and then how we would actually make this happen. So I'm on board with that.
Mr. President, could we do that between now and next time? I mean, we have a legal staff. It's just a matter of them. I'm sure that they've gone over this before. So I don't know how much time it would take for them to do their craft, because that's why we hired them. They pretty much on top of these things. Not to question you, sir. It's just sometimes we throw things over to the side and kind of leave them there, and they die there. When we have a legal staff, very capable legal staff, that could probably give us that answer by the next time we meet.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Watts.
Today.
Yes, sir. The one thing, first of all, let me start here. One thing you mentioned in the beginning is this is an emergency ordinance, and it's stated as an emergency because we are in a public health crisis. One thing that is not on our side is time. As each day goes by, there's someone else who will be homeless, and we could have done something to prevent it. This is what the conversations that we're having, especially the things that you're asking about legal, as Commissioner Jackson has asked. I believe that Attorney Bernstein is on the call right now. Am I correct?
Both Ms. Frazier and I are on the call.
Okay, so we have both of our attorneys are on the call right now, and I will address those questions to you, Attorney Bernstein or Attorney Frazier, if you would ask or answer the questions that have been asked about, is this a legal ordinance?
Commissioner, first of all, it's my understanding that this is the question about the emergency ordinance. It's my understanding that this was intended to be a 2-reader with final passage at the first or the meeting in December. So in that sense, it's not an emergency ordinance, though it specifies emergency aid. The second question is, I don't think the problem or potential problem is so much, can we do the aid? However, there are probably certain categories that the money has to be spent on. And I think there's going to have to be looked at. I don't think we could give cash without designating how it's supposed to be spent. But I just got back from a vacation, and I will clarify that tomorrow. I don't think as long as there's an income requirement, there's a problem with us giving it, but there does need to be some monitoring of how it's spent after it's given.
With the organizations that I mentioned to serve as a proxy to vet the process of who receives the funding, would that be suffice?
They would still have to say, for instance, monitor how it's spent. One thing that we do, say for instance, when CCAA had the contractors, they had to go out and monitor that and pay the contractors directly. I know we work with several other organizations through the regular grant program that pay the utilities directly. So it's not a cash gift or a cash amount given directly and put in a person's hand with their discretion as to how to spend it. So even through those third parties, they will be determining where those monies go and see that it benefits the families, I guess, who were screened through the application process.
So if we used, just for example, CCAA to help with utility expenses, could we appropriate funds to that organization for them to receive utility assistance?
Right. What you would do is if they were going to administer the program for you, then you would send the person over, have them go through CCAA's process, and then CCAA would help make sure that they do not get the utilities cut off. If my recollection serves, currently, I think Catholic Charities has a program like that, and Christian Services has a program like that, which are two things that the commission funds already.
Right.
So we are already doing those programs through those organizations. So
right.
And they have a protocol set up is what I'm getting at.
Absolutely. And that's what I wanted you to address for those questions. So from what I've heard from you, to comprehend this correctly, is that you could have this information by tomorrow. So we could possibly pass this on to Thursday. And if we have additional ramifications, if we need to put a pause in it at that time, we could. But I feel like that we do not need to wait on putting a pause right here or sending it to a committee. So I'll ask my commissioners, again, my colleagues again, to support moving this to Thursday.
I have Commissioner Epperson and then Commissioner Hopkins on the board.
Okay, I have an issue, and I don't understand. I'm looking at the draft of the ordinance that was submitted, ordinance number 619 of 2020. Who crafted that? Did Ms. Watts craft that?
No, it was generated through legal. Attorney Bernstein or Attorney Frazier has been out on vacation.
Okay. Well, I don't understand. I would assume once you presented your ordinance and the intent to legal, they should have questioned you right then and made sure that it articulated what you had in mind. I'm going to be in support of moving this forward until Thursday. And of course, this can be administered through CCAA, which we have they've done before. And it's an issue. It has a good criteria, a policy in place. And we need to do all that we can to help our people. We know we can't help everybody, but people are suffering, and a little bit will help. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that if we move this forward today, it's only introduction by title on Thursday. There's no discussion about this until we come back in December with a public hearing and final adoption. So, I mean, you know, we really won't do anything on Thursday. Am I correct, Ms. Frazier?
That's correct. And point of clarification, legal didn't draft it.
Who drafted it?
Because it was an appropriation ordinance, it went through finance.
Was legal not contacted?
I believe that we were told that there was a question about whether or not it was whether or not it was something that we could do, and we said we thought so, but we would have to look further.
Point of information, I think that should have been done before it was even put on the agenda. It has a signature line down there for you.
Well, if you get something to us on Thursday afternoon and it's due to the clerk on Thursday afternoon, sometimes that is prohibitive. And I think I missed the initial email on that because I was not in the office that week. So if there's going to be a blame, I will gladly take that.
I got Commissioner Young next on the board. Commissioner Young, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wonder if it would be possible, in light of what Commissioner Hopkins has said about the discussion on Thursday, to have a committee meeting about this topic this week, where any number of commissioners could come and listen and talk, and then restructure it or rephrase it as an emergency ordinance if we decide to go ahead with it, and pass it faster than the 2-week deadline at that time. It was just an idea. Thank you.
It's actually there's a motion on the floor right now to send it to Long Range, who is Vice President Johnson, so he could call a meeting before Thursday and achieve that. I have Commissioner Watts on the board.
And if we achieve that, then it will have to go back on the next agenda. So even if it was an emergency meeting, it wouldn't be an emergency meeting this week. So I think that we'll all have to restructure our schedules to do it. This is on the agenda for today. And to address what Commissioner Hopkins said, it will lay over for 2 weeks, which will allow us even more time to vet and correct the language or whatever else that we would like to suggest with this legislation. So again, I ask you all support to pass this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Watts. I have no one else on the board.
Commissioner Chavez, this is Ms. Frazier. I do want to point out that there is time. I think Commissioner Gage Watts just said that if you need for us to have any other information between now, if final passage is not until the December meeting.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Frazier, for the clarification. Mr. Everson, we'll take the first vote on the substitute motion. Roll call, please.
Okay.
Point of clarification, but before we vote, I just want to make sure that we understand this clearly. So you're saying that it's going to be on the first meeting in December, but so you're saying that if we had another meeting in between that meeting, that it still wouldn't have to lay over?
No, what I'm saying is if it's moved forward today, and then it will lay over for the 2 weeks and be on for final passage in December.
Thank you.
So that's what I'm getting at. If you move it forward today, then there's no delay.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready for the vote?
Point of information.
Sorry, Commissioner Hopkins, go ahead.
Is this to defer to committee?
Yes.
Yes, this is for Commissioner Jackson's substitute motion first.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Is this defer to committee only and then come back and put it on an agenda?
That's correct. That's his motion.
That's okay.
If it leaves out of committee.
Mr. Everson?
Okay, are we ready? So again, the motion as I have it is to move it to the long range planning committee. That's
the one that he chose.
Okay. So that's the one that's the vote we're taking right now. Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Commissioner Jackson? I think he's dropped off now. Okay, Commissioner Young?
No.
Commissioner Burrell?
No.
Commissioner Cawthorn is absent. Commissioner Gage Watts?
No.
Commissioner Talaferro? I did not hear an answer.
You're muted, Jim.
Is he? Yeah, Commissioner Talaferro, we didn't hear you.
No, sorry.
Thank you. Commissioner Atkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez?
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus?
Yes.
And Commissioner Epperson?
No.
I've got that motion fails 4-6 with 2 absent.
Next order of business.
I just want to make sure I counted that correctly in case anybody heard it differently.
Votes, it means it moves forward.
That's right. Well, we
actually
have to vote on it.
Yeah, so that brings us back to the original motion, which is to advance it to Thursday's agenda.
That's correct.
So we're ready to take a vote on that now?
Yes, sir.
Great. Commissioner Hopkins?
No.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson? Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell?
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn, Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
No.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
No.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
All right, that passes with 7 in support, 3 in opposition, and 2 absent.
Thank you, Commissioners.
And that brings us to authorize ordinance number 6020 of 2020. That's an ordinance to amend Article 6 of Chapter 32 of the Code of Ordinances of the Parish of Caddo relative to the regulation of noise, to prohibit use of engine brakes on Jefferson Parish Road, to provide for the penalty for violating said prohibition, and to otherwise provide with respect thereto, from Commissioner Epperson.
Recommend move forward to Thursday.
Second by the chair.
It's Jefferson Page Road.
Pardon?
It's Jefferson Page Road. It was misstated in the reading.
I'm sorry, did I read? Did I just skip the page?
You said Jefferson Parish, so I just want to be clear for the record. It's Jefferson.
Oh, my apologies. Yeah, Jefferson Page Road is what it says. And let's see. So that was a motion from Commissioner Epperson, seconded by the chair, and to advance. Okay, thank you.
You want to speak on that, Commissioner Epperson?
No, sir, not unless somebody had some concerns about it.
They may need to get educated on what a Jake is.
Okay. Jake brake is, there's increased drilling activity up and down Jefferson Page Road. In addition, with all of the wells that's already in place, a lot of service trucks are coming, a lot of drilling rigs, and basically instead of using their mechanical brakes, a lot of them will use their engine to gear down and slow down in speed, and it makes basically a horrendous and a disturbing noise. And even after the initial drilling is gone, there will be many trucks that's up and down Jefferson Page, between the areas where the citizens had the concerns, between Highway 80 and Jolly Napier, even after the drilling is gone, doing service work throughout and causing noise that's disturbing the citizenry. So that's the reason for that particular ordinance. And I think this will be added into our noise, ordinances, I believe.
That sounds good. I see no one else on the board. Mr. Everson, we'll do roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson, Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn, Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
All right, that passes with 10 in support and 2 absent. And that brings us to the next item, which is authorized resolution number 74 of 2020. It's a resolution urging and requesting the Louisiana State Legislature to authorize use of ballot boxes and to extend the early voting period and to otherwise providing with respect thereto.
So move.
So moved by Commissioner Watts. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Watts, would you like to speak on that?
Yes, sir. As our parish is evolving, we are obligated to provide safe options through technology, equipment, and services for our citizens and future generations. This historic election enlightened the world to be prepared for future elections. Extending early voting dates and using ballot boxes are detrimental in providing equal access to voters. It could eliminate citizens going to wrong precincts, purge from voter rolls, and waiting in long lines. Early voting dates in a plethora of states allow citizens to cast votes up until election day, along with ballot boxes as an optional service for citizens who are sick, disabled, 65 years old and above, and for those who are or will be out of town during early voting or on election day. With limited locations for early voting sites in Caddo, these services provide additional safe options for citizens to cast their votes. Commissioners, I humbly ask for your support on passing this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Watts. I got VP Johnson next on the board.
Yes, I would like to englobo and advance resolution number 74, resolution 75, the authorization of holidays for parish employees and the authorization for the year-end appointments, and all of the special resolutions and special proclamations.
Second.
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
On the ballot boxes, are they to be identified and specified based on certain locations, or
Commissioner Burrell, I'm not the author. I actually don't know the intent of the ballot boxes.
Well, I'm sure that she can. I mean, I'm asking you, but I'm sure that given the fact that it's Commissioner Gage Watts' legislation, she wouldn't mind commenting on it.
Yes, sir. I will, President. I'm good.
Go ahead.
Thank you. That will be up to the state legislators. This is a request urging state legislators to look at Caddo Parish and to see if it's advantageous for us to have ballot boxes here.
Okay. So it's whether or not they will authorize the boxes, and secondly, possibly the locations too, or is that
correct?
Okay.
And if there are additional requirements for us that will come back to Caddo Parish Commission, then we would address it at that time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
Yes,
Mr. President.
Thank you, and thank you for that clarification. I have a couple people on the board. I got Commissioner Hopkins, then Epperson, then Atkins.
Mr. Gage Watts,
yes, sir.
Is there a way we can get the clerk of court to come over? Because he may have some information, because I'm not sure I'm understanding totally. So would he have some information that would help us understand a little better?
Yes, as I'm sure he does.
Okay.
The ballot boxes are used for absentee ballots, mail-in ballots, and they will collect them at certain sites as they do in other counties. I'm not sure if they do them in other parishes in Louisiana or not, but we could ask him over on Thursday to address exactly how they could possibly be set up in Caddo Parish.
Yeah, if administration would do that, it would at least give me some more information, since that's not something we use at this moment. So
sure.
I need a little education on it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Point of information, Mr. President.
If
it has to do with.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just saying point of information because during this last election, I had an absentee. I voted absentee, but I was afraid to mail. If I had and I wound up having to give my ballot to my wife to stand in line to come up to the voter register office in order to deposit it, and she had to give identification, blah blah blah. If we had a ballot box, I understand what the ballot box is for. I could have gone and put it in there and would have bypassed all of that. So I can understand the interest for that. Thank you, Mr. President.
And they will be monitored the same way. What I've seen in other locations is they're monitored at certain locations. So for instance, if it was going to be something that the city would partner with, if it was the convention center or Riverview Hall, those ballot boxes could be set up there.
Thank you, Commissioner Watts. Commissioner Epperson.
Yes, sir. I will support the Englobo with the exception of the Veteran Celebration Week proclamation, since that's passed, please.
Understand. Commissioner Atkins.
I wanted to make a substitute motion to Commissioner Johnson's Englobo. I'm supportive of his Englobo with the exception I'd like to remove the first one, the Commissioner Gage Watts' issue around voting.
Chair will second that. Do you want to elaborate or speak on that, Commissioner Atkins?
I'm supportive of everything else on the agenda. I think there's several of us that have some concerns with Commissioner Gage Watts' proposal on ballot boxes and early voting. So I just would like to give us an opportunity to separately vote on that matter with respect to forwarding that matter.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Actually, I had my hand up next. I agree with you guys on that. I think between Commissioner Epperson and Commissioner Jackson and our registrar of voters next year, we're going to have 2 new locations and a very thorough process when it comes to early voting. And I think we're making a ton of progress. I'd like to see what that looks like first, and then maybe we'll move on to start requesting the ballot boxes maybe the year after. So I'll be supportive of holding off on the ballot boxes and urging the state legislator to see what new and advancements we're going to have next year that we already have in place. I see no other commissioners on the board. Mr. Everson will vote on Commissioner Atkins' substitute motion first.
Okay, and so let's see. This is for Commissioner Atkins' substitute motion. Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
No.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Burrell?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Cawthorn, Commissioner Gage Watts.
No. One of you just made a post. One of you just made a post.
Okay, I'm sorry, Commissioner Gage Watts?
No.
That's what I thought. I just couldn't hear you actually. Commissioner Taliaferro.
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Yes.
And Commissioner Epperson.
No.
Okay, I believe that passes with 6 in support and 4 in opposition and 2 out.
All right, so that in Globo advances, and now we vote on.
And now we would.
Watts.
Yeah, now we go back to resolution 74, which is just the ballot boxes and the
okay
from Commissioner Watts, seconded by Commissioner Burrell to advance that.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, Commissioner Hopkins.
No.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell.
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn. Commissioner Gage Watts.
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro.
No.
Commissioner Atkins.
No.
Commissioner Chavez.
No.
Commissioner Lazarus.
No.
Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
All right, looks like that is I have 5 in opposition and 5 in support, so that does not advance. And that brings us, okay, you know what, in that motion that was made for the englobo and adopt, there was no mention made of the final 2 items under this section of the agenda, which were adding the complete count census committee as a guest for the special recognition and the speakers from Prize Fest and Providence House.
Right, that's correct.
So moved. Commissioner Johnson, did you say you mentioned those, or if not, I'll add them. We can move those to Thursday.
I may just not have heard it. But if somebody can clarify that for me.
I did not mention in Mario President. He made a motion to englobo those in advance, and I seconded it just now.
Yes. All right. We'll get roll call vote, please.
Matter of clarity, Mr. President, we're voting on the substitute motion that was just made.
Well, this is a different motion for myself and Vice President to move these 2 items to Thursday.
Okay.
Commissioner
Point of
Hopkins.
information. Mr. President, point of
Yes,
information.
sir.
We just voted on, were we voting on all the englobo at that time?
Correct, but there was 2 that the clerk didn't. Go ahead.
So they failed. So they failed. All the englobo failed.
No, I think, well, we'll ask the attorney, but I believe that we voted, what failed was our vote on the issues regarding voting sites.
Okay.
And I believe that Commissioner Johnson's motion to forward all the other stuff to Thursday is still in play.
Okay. Good
Yes.
enough. Thank you.
actually, what I have record of is that the substitute motion that was made to englobo and adopt everything but 74 was adopted. So that went forward. Then that's why we went back to vote on 74.
That's correct.
That'll work for me.
And
Yes.
so then the thing that I was trying to clarify is that in Commissioner Johnson's original englobo motion, the final two items weren't mentioned. And
That's
so
good.
he and Commissioner Chavez have the motion now, which would just be to advance those final two items.
And I am on the call. It says Stormy Gage Watts left, but I'm here.
I see you here.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing.
All right, so the motion we have right now is to advance the complete census committee count and the visitor of the film prize to Thursday. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Okay.
And does that get Mr. Jackson's special resolution? We got that already, is that correct?
I think that was included in LBJ.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Okay, let's see, Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell.
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn. Commissioner Gage Watts.
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro.
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Yes.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries with 10 in support and 2 absent.
What was that, Jeff? I'm having some connectivity issues.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Commissioner Jackson, that was just like, and there was an englobo and adopt made to advance all of the special resolutions as well as some of the
yes, I'm sorry.
And it didn't specifically say the last 2 items, so there was another motion to englobo and advance those last 2.
Okay, put me as a yes, please. I'm trying to get connected.
Will do. All right. And okay. And that brings us to the communication committee reports, I believe.
I got VP Johnson.
Yes. The agenda item that Commissioner Gage Watts put on the agenda about the voter boxes, it's sort of going down the same path as we did on the early voting locations. And you got a lot of citizens in Caddo Parish thinking now that we have voter suppression. And the vote today showed that same field that they think that there's voter suppression. The voting boxes could be running parallel to the voting locations. And if something happens that they can't get a location in place, you at least have the possibility of having some boxes in place. And I think that right now we don't need to have anything that apprehends people opportunity to go vote. All of these are good ideas. They're doing it in other places across the United States. There's no way to do voter fraud, as stories I've heard in this last election. The boxes will be put in a place where there's 24-hour cameras. So I just think that we need to relook at that and at least show the citizens of Caddo Parish that we're trying to increase their opportunity to go vote by means that we can control, or not really control, but to at least put in front of other people that they would at least say, well, we're thinking proactive instead of reactive. That's all I got.
Thank you, VP. Commissioner Jackson, and then Commissioner Atkins.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Wilson, if you could, please follow up as soon as possible. I sent you some contacts with regard to the governor's chief counsel, as well as his chief of staff, and then Commissioner of Administration Jay Darden. I want to be clear that I didn't bring anything to the body with a false assumption that we would be reimbursed. Dr. Wilson, is our understanding, and it was everybody's understanding, that COVID-19 related expenses would be reimbursed out of a pool of money. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I did speak to Mr. Jay Darden a few weeks ago. And he told me that for us to go ahead and submit it, then based on the availability of funds, they would fund it accordingly.
Right.
But I certainly will reach out to him again, talk to him about it again.
But it was supposed to be for COVID-19. That's what
correct.
that's what the act specifically stated, that if it was COVID-19 related, that we would be reimbursed. And so somewhere the rules got changed to include salaries for law enforcement. But Congress in the original act never included salaries for law enforcement. It was for, or the way we were sold on this was, and when I say we, I mean Caddo Parish, because I don't want folks thinking that this is something that I just kind of falsely sold to the parish. But this was something that we were sold as, if we responded to COVID-19, these expenses would be covered. Well, somewhere down the line, there was some changes to the rules, and they allow for law enforcement salaries to be covered. Is that how I'm understanding it?
Yes, sir.
So, we went forward in good faith, and we did funding for rental assistance. We did funding for cleaning and providing services to daycares. I believe that was John Paul's deal. We did support for testing, 2 rounds of testing. We did mask. I believe Commissioner Gage Watts proposed that we did mask, and Commissioner Lynn Cawthorn proposed that we do the COVID-19 kits. And so we did all of those things collectively with an assumption that we would eventually be reimbursed. And now we're being somehow told that our stuff is being put on hold. And so we need to be aggressive. I hope I'm not the only one that's concerned about that. I hope I got 11 other people, at least on this call, that's concerned about that we went forth in good faith and did what we were supposed to do. And we will be reimbursed. We will be reimbursed as we were told we would be reimbursed, and not have the rules changed on us in the middle of the game, or we'll just have to send a demand letter asking for the parish to be reimbursed for some other dollars. But I don't think it's fair for us to go in with the assumption that, this pool of money was set aside for one thing, and then in the middle of the game, the rules got changed all of a sudden. And we should have at least had first dibs on it, because we were the first ones out of the gate during COVID. It took an additional month for the state to stand up community testing after we had did it. We were doing community testing in April. The state didn't start their community testing until mid-May. So to see that we have not even been reimbursed for that, the rules got changed in the middle of the game somewhere. So I hope that we will be aggressive in responding to that, and we'll be very concerned, and we'll be asking all of our legislators to stand with us on those particular items. That's it for me, at least for now. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Jack. Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you,
Jeffrey
Mr.
there?
Yeah, sorry, it took me a minute to get my button. There've been some comments made about voter suppression, not just today, but previously. And I just want to be clear that I and my colleagues have no desire to suppress anyone from voting, to prevent anyone from voting. I'm against voter suppression, but I am in favor of ballot control and the process control, and ensuring we have fair, equal, legal elections. So, if there are so many efforts to suppress the votes, how could it be that we had near record turnouts? I can't speak to the exact facts, but I've read that we had near record turnouts in this election, and even better turnouts than historical in the minority communities. So I certainly think there's not voter suppression going on right now, and I have no interest in voter suppression, but I do have interest in having fair and legal and open elections. Thank you.
Point of clarification, Mr. President.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Burrow.
Since I followed our voting this time much closer than I have ever before, because we were not in a sense of crisis. I think where we got the maximum voter turnout was because the people opposed what was projected as being voter suppression. The limited number of early voting sites. It's only one that I heard about, and they were willing to risk their lives, their life and limbs, to get out there under this crisis. And the second thing was the fact that regardless of whether you supported this president or not, many people didn't, and they put themselves out there in harm's way. Despite what was out there, you do a lot of things when you feel that your life is on the line or your family is on the line, and I think that's what Commissioner Atkins may have seen. It wasn't the fact that there was not a lot of, there were not efforts to suppress the vote. It's just the fact that because that issue was out there, I'm not saying that we did in Caddo per se, although some say that there was some voter suppression here. But at the same time, I think out of the sense of emergency, individual emergency, that people came out overwhelmingly because they needed a change, period. And they were willing to risk life and limb. Sometimes you do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. I have nobody else on there for communiques. Mr. Everson, do we have any late citizens comments?
We do. We've received one electronically. And then let's see, one moment. I will share that one. And if you'd like, I can go ahead and give out that phone number. It's 318-226-6596. And if you'd like, I'll go ahead and read the public comment that was received.
Yes, please.
Great. It comes from Mr. Will James, and it reads, "Greetings and salutations to all members of the commission. I apologize for my tardy submission. When the meeting went live on Facebook, it had already passed the initial public comments. Reaching out to the commission to inquire about the current stage of the relocation process of the Rebel Monument and its current location in front of the Caddo Parish Courthouse. I'm also writing to give feedback for the proposition regarding limiting the number of times one can apply for the hold harmless permit to twice a month. I appreciate the professional demeanor of the facilities and maintenance staff that handles the liability waiver and hold harmless agreement. Over the past 3 years since I returned to Shreveport after serving my country and studying sociology, I have been polite enough to file for the aforementioned permit, been considerate of others that may be utilizing the courthouse grounds via prior reservations, and ensured by walking around afterwards that no debris, trash, etc. was left on the premises. I pride myself on being a peaceful protester that speaks out to where our elected officials hear us and act, or in the event that they do not respond or speak disparagingly about our concerns and efforts, elect someone who does hear the concerns of the citizens they took an oath to represent and serve. We have seen positive feedback and actions from the likes of Commissioners Gage, Watts, Epperson, and Johnson, just to name a few. With that being said, I have been having regular nighttime digital protests that address the legacy of lynching within Caddo Parish. I performed this protest in front of the courthouse with a permit on courthouse grounds, or as a private citizen exercising my right to freedom of speech on the public sidewalk outside the courthouse. I have pledged to do this until the Rebel Monument is physically relocated to its new abode. There are other organizations that on other nights hand out nonpartisan info on upcoming elections. There are more that come to hold candlelight memorial services to honor murder victims or national icons that have passed away. There are even, I believe that there's a misspelled word, and there are even nights when performances and visual artists assemble to share their gifts. The location is a natural location for people to speak openly. Over the last 5.5 months, the commissioner for District 3 has communicated via email, Facebook Messenger calls, and even at several commission meetings, various comments that put down the efforts of peaceful lead organizers. Some of them could even be seen as attempts to invite violence or destruction of property. He lumps us all together and says, "You protesters," while making comments that when you add 500 people around the courthouse, you could have taken it down yourselves. Or instead of taking a knee, you should have been speaking out about early voting. The proposal that is being submitted to the commission to restrict access to the grounds no more than twice a month is nothing more than one person's way to restrict citizens from speaking out about issues, restricting residents who are demanding justice from elected officials or law enforcement entities. I vehemently do not support this proposal and ask the commission to recognize this as an attempt to stifle the voice of peaceful protesters and not pass this after the public hearing on November 19th, 2020. Thank you for your time and allowing me to submit my thoughts. Will James.
Thank you, Mr. Everson, for reading that. Did anybody else call in via the citizen comment hotline?
I do not see a caller on the line. We did have repeated calls from Mr. Bailey, who typically calls earlier in the meeting, but I don't see any calls at the moment.
Thank you for fielding those. We'll move on to the next agenda item.
All right, that brings us to the consent agenda.
Move to advance.
Well, the consent agenda needs a motion to adjourn if y'all are so.
Sure. This chair will second that. Thank you, Mr. Everson. Thank you, Deputy Nations.